There is nothing more emotional and powerful than a parent talking about their children, especially when the issue is how poorly their kids have been treated by the Veterans Administration and their government for serving their country. The debate is joined once again. A recent article quoted the Pope as saying about 2% of Roman Catholic clerics are pedophiles. Now the Vatican is striking back and questioning the accuracy of said interview. And don't believe for 1 second the Hobby Lobby case is fading now that the Supreme Court has weighed in. The battle is just beginning. The fastest 3 hours of news begins as we question everything from Monday, July 15th, 2014. We are awash in the various pseudo-news websites and such trumpeting rampant disease from the recent spate of illegal aliens. And now the time has come to scrub these out with some hard truth. That's today's topic in Telling It Like It Is. All this and more after John Bachman deals out this edition of Newsmax Now.
Ed, the Israeli Defense Forces airstrike continue at this hour after a truce brokered by the Egyptian government failed to get off the ground. After holding its fire for some 6 hours earlier, Israeli officials have confirmed that they have resumed Operation Protective Edge against Hamas militants. Smoke can be seen, as you see here, rising over Gaza and the IDF targets militant areas in Palestine. The continued offensive comes after Hamas rejected that ceasefire deal. After learning about Hamas's decision, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had this to say.
We are prepared to continue and intensify our operation to protect our people. And for this, we expect full support from the responsible members of the international community.
Now to the Veterans Affairs scandal. It's going to cost an extra $1.4 billion to provide benefits to U.S. military veterans. This will happen in the next 5 years without management improvements, according to the Inspector General's report. The VA inaccurately processed about 1/3 of the benefit claims and failed to make a decision on claims for more than 6,000 veterans. Last night, the House Committee on Veterans Affairs had a hearing on the issue to discuss this. More to come on that later here today. However, the biggest revelation was not about the benefits, but perhaps the fact that the VA spied on members of Congress. Chairman of the House Veterans Affairs Committee, Jeff Miller, says congressional staffers were put in office equipped with hidden cameras and microphones. Meantime, U.S. Marines are testing a $32 million robot aimed at reducing the load military personnel have to carry in combat. This robotic pack mule, as it's being called, came to life during a recent military exercise in Hawaii, and it's expected to carry anywhere between 100 and 400 pounds on any type of terrain and in all sorts of weather. Military researchers say the robot will interact with troops in the same way that trained animals interact with their handlers, already being used. The robot is being developed by Boston Dynamics, which is owned by Google. Head over to you.
Whatever, hooray, that you shout, whatever win you attempt to take credit for in 2015, you will not be celebrated. It has been made clear that there is not a corner of VBA leadership that will not cut, nor a statistic that they will not manipulate to lay claim to a hollow victory. What we all want to see, both my Republican and Democrat colleagues on this committee, is progress, not deception.
The Veterans Administration is on the carpet once again, a position they should be getting used to, and rightly so. The latest word from those in charge points to over $200 million being overpaid in disability claims, and the dispute between the VA and Congress over whether any real progress is being made on the tremendous backlog of cases. All this and more people with intimate knowledge of what really went on. They're coming forward and sharing their stories, lending more credence to how stunningly dysfunctional and dangerous the VA has become. Let us welcome to MidPoint. Valerie Riviello is a registered nurse who spent 28 years at the Albany Stratton Medical Center in Virginia, now one of 37 whistleblowers nationwide accusing the VA of retaliation for telling the truth. We are also joined by her attorney, Sherry Cannon, to discuss her case. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Hello.
Valerie, let me ask you first with regard to your position. How long were you at the hospital?
I've been there 28 years in March.
Are you still employed there, or are you now currently on some sort of a leave?
I'm employed there. I'm on a special project that I'm to work on 8 hours a day.
But the special project is one that you were put on after you revealed certain things about your tenure and your time there, correct?
Correct.
Tell us a little bit more, if you will, about what you saw, because the stories that caught our attention right away were the words stolen drugs and tortured veterans. Now, that is a headline that has been in certain members of the media, certain parts of the media. The New York Post had that. Tortured veterans is what certainly strikes a lot of people right in the heart.
Well, I was the nurse manager on the inpatient psychiatric unit, and I took a female veteran out of restraints to give her care and basic needs that she required, and that was not what the physicians wanted to do.
When you talk about having this veteran in restraints, you then go into detail as to how the doctor involved, the physician involved, wanted her put back. Can you just talk a little bit about the torture side of this? Because I think if you get a little bit more into this story, people will understand exactly what was happening to this individual.
This individual was a female veteran who had a history of military sexual trauma, and she also has a lot of medical problems, and keeping her in restraints is really contraindicated because of those things. And so the length of time that she was kept in was way more than would have been required, and actually she shouldn't have been put in restraints at all.
What other instances did you see, one or two specifically, that sit with you that I guess the best word would be revolted you, that simply made you question what you were doing at this facility?
The same patient again in February was kept in restraints for 49 continuous hours. Basically what I've seen is a deterioration in patient care, so that it's not patient-centered and it's more physician convenience.
Did you also witness any instances, and can you speak specifically to instances of doctors, medical officials, VA officials, whatever, simply covering themselves, simply making sure that things would not come back to bite them?
I really can't speak to that. I only can speak to what happened on my unit.
Sherry, can you then speak to a little bit more about the legal action that you're involved in here now?
Yes. Valerie first came to the law firm when immediately after she reported the specific instance of patient abuse in November of 2013, when it became apparent that she was going to be suffering reprisal for having reported this incident to the patient safety officer. Throughout the month of December and January, we were monitoring the situation. And reported this repeatedly to senior VA officials in New York, that she had been taken out of her job and that she had been a whistleblower. Ultimately, the VA decided to reprimand her for actually treating this patient with the utmost care and taking her out of restraints. We were successful in having that pushed off, but when Valerie vigorously defended herself, and when we defended her, they decided they would suspend her as well. At that point, we had already gone to the Office of Special Counsel, an independent federal agency down here in D.C., and filed a claim with them as well as with the VA IG regarding the patient abuse as well as the reprisal that Valerie was suffering. And as a consequence of going to them, the Office of Special Counsel down here in D.C. got the VA to stop, or what's called stay, the personnel action so that there was no pending action against Valerie while the investigation is ongoing.
Let me ask, with regard to the military, speaking to you then, Sherry, did the military, the VA, anybody, any official at any time intimate or say to you in any way, shape, or form, even a whisper, if you will, that this, what was happening to Valerie now, this reassignment, if you will, was because she went to the media?
It was not because of the media, it was because she went to the patient safety advocate. And no, of course, they're not going to admit that that's why they did it. But the way the legal system works and the way reprisal works is it's very insidious, and people will take actions against other individuals, especially people like Val who speak up for what's right. And they don't ever tell you that's why they're doing it, but in fact, they have no other explanation for what they've done by moving her out of her job, by trying to reprimand or suspend her. There's absolutely no other explanation other than reprisal for the whistleblowing.
Valerie, after 28 years, why did you decide that now was the time that you had to say something?
Well, in the past, when I said things, there were physicians that actually relied on me and respected my assessments. In the past couple of years, we've had a change in leadership and a definite change in the way patients are being treated, and so I just couldn't remain silent. I needed to speak up for the veterans who sometimes can't speak for themselves, especially in a mental health area, and also for nurses, because nurses' opinions and assessments should not be disregarded.
Are the nurses' opinions, in your opinion, then, pretty much turned down at this point to where people say, we know better, shut up, we're the ones who make the decisions?
Yeah, it's kind of a power struggle.
Power struggle from the doctors or from the VA officials?
I would say the physicians and the leadership at the hospital.
Would you say
it's more physician-centered or physician-driven?
So it is many times in your experience that it is the actual physicians who are there, or in many ways playing God, and they simply don't want to hear anything from anybody else?
They just kind of want to do things their way. They don't want to follow policy and procedure, and they don't want a nurse to hold them accountable to that.
What is it that you saw then when you talk about the way the patients were being treated, when you saw a change in how they were being treated? Was there a specific instance other than the one you've talked about now? How did things change?
Well, we really prided ourselves in a restraint-free environment. In the last 2 years, with a change in physicians, we're now up to 150 hours of restraints annually, when 2 years ago we were down to only 20 hours of restraint annually. That's one thing. Physicians also disregard what patients have to say, and the patients should be part of their treatment and a partner in their treatment.
Why are patients being restrained so much more often now? This almost sounds inhumane.
Basically because the physicians don't want to have to come in during the hours that might not be convenient for them, during weekend or off-tour hours. If patients are taken out and perhaps they have to go back into restraints, the physician has to come in within an hour, and most of the physicians don't want to do that.
So you're saying that the physicians want the patients kept in restraints to make it more convenient for the physicians?
Yes, so that when they can time when they come in to evaluate.
These people that you see being put in restraints, would you say that they needed it?
I think sometimes initially, but we usually try to get patients out within 1 to 2 hours.
There are a lot of discussions now going around about suicides from a lot of these veterans. In your time there, can you say that you saw veterans, people there who were contemplating that you were fearful may do that simply because they weren't getting the help they needed?
Absolutely. Our suicide rate has gone way up. 25% of suicides are veterans. They've tried to have a suicide prevention coordinator and a team of people, but we have lots and lots of veterans who come and have suicidal thoughts, and I've seen a lot of younger veterans coming back that have attempted and or completed.
I have about 30, 40 seconds left here. You have 2 adopted sons in the Marines and the Army. How fearful are you right now for their health once they have to, if they have to get into the VA system? You must be frightened.
I will definitely be overseeing their care, that's for sure. I would hope that they get respectful, dignified care that they deserve. They've come a long way, and they're over there. I have one son in Japan. Another one is here working locally, but their safety is my number one importance.
Yes or no? Do you trust the VA?
Not really.
That's pretty much the answer many people would agree with, I think. Sherry Cannon, Valerie Riviello. Valerie, thank you so much for your bravery in coming forward with this, and we certainly hope that things work out and your sons remain safe. Thank you very much, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, laying down the law on President Obama's continued overreach. That and a whole lot more when MidPoint continues on the Newsmax TV network.
Smile.
No matter how well you provide for your family today, if you don't have life insurance, their future may be at risk. Think about what would happen if you were gone. Would they struggle to pay the bills and face an uncertain future? They don't have to. You can help guarantee those you love $200,000, $500,000, $750,000 or more with life insurance through AIG Direct. We'll help you get more for your money, up to 70% more. Just look, less than $14 a month buys a 40-year-old man a $250,000 term life policy. That's up to 3 times what you can get from other companies for the same price. No wonder millions of people rely on AIG companies. The call is free, the quote is free, and there's no obligation. Make the future more secure for those you love. Call now so you can sleep better at night.
For a free quote, call 1-800-558-5246 or visit AIGdirect.com.
3 a.m. and you're up again for the third time. It's not just affecting your sleep, it's interrupting your daily life. Frequent trips to the bathroom due to an aging prostate is a common concern, but you can now do something about it with Prostate Revive. Doctor-formulated Prostate Revive is an all-natural dietary supplement packed with 15 powerful ingredients, focused on improving prostate health by targeting the 2 main sources of prostate concerns, rogue testosterone and inflammation. And now, in this limited time offer, you can try Prostate Revive absolutely free. That's a free bottle, a 30-day supply of Prostate Revive, risk-free. Plus, if you call right now, you'll also receive our free report, A Doctor's Guide to a Healthy Prostate. Call now for details on getting your free bottle, plus our doctor's report. Call 1-800-659-REVIVE. That's 1-800-659-REVIVE. Don't be a victim of an aging prostate. Start getting the sleep you need and get your life back with Prostate Revive. Claim your risk-free bottle now at 1-800-659-REVIVE.
Now on Newsmax TV. Donald Trump is a Tea Party favorite, but will he really run for president? Now Newsmax reveals the truth about Donald's plans for 2016. Go now to Newsmax TV.
So far this year, Republicans in Congress have blocked every serious idea to strengthen the middle class. Lifting the minimum wage, fair pay, student loan reform, they've said no to all of it. And that's when I've acted this year to help working Americans on my own, when Congress won't act. I've taken actions to attract new jobs, lift workers' wages, help students pay off their loans, and more. And the Republican plan right now is not to do some of this work with me, instead it's to sue me. That's actually what they're spending their time on. It's a political stunt that's going to waste months of America's time, and by the way, they're going to pay for it using your hard-earned tax dollars.
President Barack Obama is in the minds of many critics the leader who more often than not deals in hubris and arrogance instead of law of the land, and his executive overreach is already something of a D.C. legend. But there is a side note here few have really covered. Is he really getting anything done by going it on his own? That, the Boehner lawsuit, and the Hobby Lobby case are on the docket for this edition of Laying Down the Law. Let's welcome to MidPoint. He's a professor at George Mason University and author of The Once and Future King, The Rise of Crown Government in America. F.H. Buckley joins the fray. Frank, thank you so much for joining us today.
Ed, thank you for having me.
Frank, is the thing that catches everybody really first and foremost is certainly in that soundbite we heard from the president. He is almost giddy at times going in front of the media, basically flouting the fact that he will do it on his own and it is everybody else's fault. And this despite the fact that the Supreme Court seems to side on the side of law.
Well, that's correct. And it's kind of funny if people don't agree with him, they're at fault, not him. I find that a little ironical.
When we talk about what he has done, there's the big question. With all of these pen in hand and I will do it on my own, has he really done anything to this point using that executive authority? And legally, is he really going to get anything done?
Well, first of all, yes, he has. He has done things. And the most remarkable thing was easing immigration laws. And that's a function of not enforcing the law. And it's also a function of really legislating from the White House in adopting a provision which regularized almost 2 million young undocumented aliens. And that was done after Congress refused to pass the so-called DREAM Act. So there it is. Congress said, we don't want to do this. And then Obama said, well, I don't care. I'm going to do it myself. pretty consequential.
Is he within the law with what he is doing right now? If you were to look at it strictly as a lawyer and look at what he is doing right now.
Well, it's hard to say. Is he abusing the Constitution, or is he simply working out some of the possibilities that were always there? I mean, ultimately, it's a political question. I don't see it as a judicial question. I really don't see the Supreme Court solving the problem. If it's a problem, as I see it to be, I see the Supreme Court saying roughly, this is a matter for the other two branches to work out. And up to now, Congress has not done much except say, after you, Gaston, to the Supreme Court. I don't think it's going to work.
Let us look at the Supreme Court here, because the NLRB decision is certainly one that comes to mind right away. The Supreme Court 9-0 basically said that the administration was out of line when it appointed a majority of members to the NLRB. Does this not open the door for possibly dozens, hundreds, thousands of lawsuits that will follow now, seeing as this has been found to be unconstitutional and what these NLRB officials did while they were in office?
No, I think it's a one-off, and I'll tell you why. First of all, Congress actually ended up approving all these guys subsequently. So all we're talking about is the stump period during the recess appointment. Secondly, recess appointments are really a rather minor matter overall, in part because of the president's ability to simply get around all of that by appointing czars. That's the trend today, and even the cabinet at this point is not a decision-making body. It's simply a body where the president says, here's what the plan is, and get with it. So it's not going to make a big difference.
Okay, then you would then disagree, because there's an attorney, Steve Bernstein, who's with Fisher & Phillips, the law firm representing employers. He said that basically the new board could get bogged down in exercises of retrospection, and it may be good news for these 600 companies that were given adverse determinations between January 2012 and July 2013 when the board was in session. So you don't find any merit in that?
No, I don't, because it's always possible retroactively to validate all of that. And with the majority on the board being Obama's appointees at this point, I don't see why that wouldn't happen. So I don't see that as a game even worth fighting over.
All right, let's talk about another game that some people is not worth fighting over. John Boehner's lawsuit, called by many a publicity stunt, called by some an idea and a possibility of generating and re-energizing the base and getting them at least excited that the Speaker of the House is doing something here. From the legal standpoint, where do you fall?
Well, I see it more as a political issue. It's a matter, for me, of John Boehner refusing to do what he might do congressionally to block the president by throwing it over to the courts. Would this really get anywhere? I think not, largely because the Supreme Court has, in the past, had a real tendency to defer to the political branches or to stay away from political issues. You know where you saw that? John Roberts on Obamacare. So I don't think the Supreme Court will do much about it. But even then, here's how you look at it. It's like you have a machine with 1 million levers. And if the Supreme Court struck down one lever, that would still leave 999,999 other levers. It wouldn't make a big difference.
Now, you talk about levers, and here's another part of that here, because as we come down and speak about a lawsuit, there's also impeachment that people have talked about. Now, Bill Kristol is the editor at the Weekly Standard. He was on ABC's This Week last Sunday. He said part of the problem with impeachment, and I want you to hear this soundbite from him as well, is that it would result in Joe Biden's ascension to the presidency. Take a listen.
Yeah, no responsible Republican elected official has called for impeachment, and one problem with it is, of course, you just get Joe Biden as president. The Republican task is to elect a Republican Senate and elect a Republican president in 2016, not to create a phony issue which allows Democrats to make Republicans look extreme. So Republicans are not going to impeach President Obama. They are, I think, going to make the case for why a Republican Senate could check President Obama in 2015 and 2016, and why a Republican president is needed to replace President Obama.
Now, looking at this impeachment issue here, do you see any legal reasoning here? Because certainly impeachment is something that deals in big specifics here. In your legal opinion here, has the legal barrier been reached to where impeachment is logical and doable?
You know what? I'm a realist here. I don't think there is a legal barrier, in the sense that if you impeach and convict the president, there's no appeal therefrom. And therefore, the standard is whatever the House and the Senate says it is. But in any event, it's foolish to even talk about this stuff, given the fact that there are no circumstances in which you would find the Senate willing to convict. So it would be purely a matter of spinning one's wheels. The only time, I mean, to imagine impeachment, you have to imagine a president in one party, the House in another party, and 2/3 of a Senate in the other party. And that happened once in American history, in 1868. I don't see it happening in my lifetime, or my daughter's.
Is this really nothing more than really bad theater at this point?
Yeah, that's a good way of characterizing it. You know what? It's not just bad theater, it's buck passing. And it seems to me that ultimately it's a political issue, and ultimately you have to ask Congress to do something. And then really, ultimately, it's a matter of the American people saying this is not the constitutional regime we wanted. This is what George Mason said is an elected monarchy.
Is it almost, when you talk about that, there are people who can want to look at the Republicans and say this is extreme. Does this make the Republicans look extreme and sometimes almost desperate?
Well, I mean, that's a political issue. To my mind, what Obama is doing is extreme, and I'm rather shocked that ordinary people don't see it as a real constitutional issue. That there are constitutional limitations on the president is something that really doesn't occupy too many people's minds. And in the process, what has happened, I argue in my book, is we've arrived at virtually a new constitution of almost unlimited presidential power.
About 30, 45 seconds or so that I have left right here. Speaking again from the legal standpoint, the Republicans are looking to do something here. What would you suggest?
Well, what they're going to have to do is use some of the other powers they have, which is principally the power of the purse. And they haven't really used that up to now. There are threats that they might do so. But before they can do so, the American people have to decide that they'll be behind the Republican Party on that issue, because otherwise it'll be catastrophe for the Republicans.
All right, I want to remind everybody once again, let's show our viewers here your book, which you have mentioned a couple of times here. We want to make sure that they know all about this, The Once and Future King, the rise of crown government in America, and certainly what we are talking about here, many would believe is certainly a rise of crown government here under the Obama administration as well. Frank Buckley, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I'm not a lawyer. I just play one on TV. That's why I always look to the people like you to give me the hard answers. Thanks so much for your time.
Ed, thank you so much. You're not a lawyer yet.
Yeah, but I'm close. If you're on TV, you're pretty close at this point. Thanks so much, Frank.
Goodbye.
We'll do it again. All right, coming up next, the latest from the Mothership website. And still ahead, another example of when lawmakers and the media play you, the American voter, for a fool. It's coming up right here on MidPoint.
Pat Boone here with a word about bank safety. Do you think your money is safe in the bank? Don't bank on it. A generation ago, bank accounts felt secure and they paid interest. This encouraged the virtue of thrift and saving. But today, bank accounts pay virtually nothing, and they've shifted from low risk to high risk. For example, did you know your money deposited in most U.S. banks could be subject to limited withdrawal and even confiscation? Oh yes, and that's just the first of 19 risks explained in a new white paper entitled Don't Bank on It. You still think your bank deposits are safe? You better get this vital new Don't Bank on It white paper now. Call the number on the screen or visit SwissAmerica.com, the gold standard. Learn how simple it is to become your own banker today.
When Bob got into the accident, I was terrified. His injuries were so severe, but once we knew he was going to be okay, what then?
I couldn't go back to work for a long time, and we got way behind on our bills.
We'd hired an attorney, but when our case kept dragging on, we didn't know how we were going to get by. Thankfully, our attorney knew about Oasis Legal Finance.
Oasis looked at our case and got us the money the very next day.
What a relief it was. We didn't have to wait until our case settled, and the money from Oasis helped us when we needed it most.
At first, I wasn't so sure. What if we lost the case? How would we be able to pay back Oasis? But then I found out if we did lose, we wouldn't have to pay them back. So there was no risk in doing it. No risk.
If you were involved in an accident and hired an attorney to fight for the compensation you deserve but need money now before your case settles, then call Oasis today. Oasis has given millions of dollars to people like you who need money fast while waiting for their case to settle. There's no risk, so call now.
I was hurt badly in a car accident just after my wife gave birth. We were counting on the cash from my lawsuit to get caught up, but the case took forever.
Honestly, we didn't know what we were going to do. Then we saw an Oasis TV commercial and called. We were approved and got money from Oasis the next day.
Not in a week, the very next day.
I was hurt at work and filed a workers' comp claim. I called Oasis and they gave me the cash I needed. Unfortunately, I ended up losing my case, but Oasis let us keep the money. They kept their promise and we didn't need to pay them back.
There are no out-of-pocket costs and no payments until your case is settled. If you lose your case, you don't have to repay Oasis. There's no risk. Call Oasis now to see how much money you can get before your case settles.
Call now, 1-800-562-8184. 1-800-562-8184. 1-800-562-8184.
Hello, I'm John Bachman. Welcome to this Newsmax Now update. A suspect in the 2012 attack on the U.S. diplomatic compound in Benghazi has been found dead. The guy we're talking about is known as Faraj al-Shibli. He was seen being detained by a local militia in the eastern Libyan city of Mars 2 days ago. It's unclear what happened to him next, but his corpse was found yesterday by local authorities in the same area he was last seen alive. Libyan sources had linked al-Shibli to the attack on the compound, which left 4 Americans dead, including U.S. Ambassador to Libya, Chris Stevens. And a mega tobacco merger is now apparently done. Reynolds American and Lorillard Tobacco announced a $27.4 billion deal today. The partnership brings together 2 of the 3 largest U.S. cigarette makers. The combined company will keep the Reynolds American name. It's expected to have $11 billion in annual sales and about $5 billion worth of operating income. Regardless of the fact that smoking has declined, tobacco companies remain very profitable. Those who continue to smoke will pay whatever it costs, apparently in health costs, to buy those cigarettes. More stories ahead in 30 minutes. I'm John Bachman. This has been a Newsmax Now Update.
All right, deportations finally on the Obama administration list of things to get done. The president's very real threat to go it alone, and Elizabeth Warren not exactly out of the Democratic presidential mix by any means. All this in a bag of chips. We check out the latest from the Newsmax website. Welcome in managing editor Tim Colley. Tim, good to see you again today, or hear you, I should say.
Hey, Ed, how you doing?
Excellent, my friend. Here we go. Top of the website right now as we look currently. More lost emails. FEC destroyed hard drive of ex-learner employee. Wow, Tim. Shocker. Stunner. I never would have guessed that this would eventually make the light of day.
You have to wonder if they have a hard drive, destroying department or a whole, task force, that deals with destroying the hard drives. There seems to be a lot of them falling under the hammer.
Does it not almost, and you certainly as a journalist and myself as well, we look at stories such as this and we say, you have to wonder how long they think that they can get away with this. And certainly there is somebody here trying to get away with something, but you've got to expect that they know there's a trail somewhere and someone's going to find it sooner or later.
Oh, yeah. In the age of the NSA monitoring everything, it's inconceivable. They can't back up their email or have records to it, or they don't. I mean, it reeks to high heaven.
All right, here's another. We have talked an awful lot here on this show and also on America's Forum and the Steve Malzberg Show a lot about Elizabeth Warren. Here's one from the website now. Elizabeth Warren's popularity surging among progressives. This is interesting because Elizabeth Warren herself has indicated that people know she does not want to be a candidate in 2016. She doesn't want to even think about running for president. Yet, aren't you like me? You you can just kind of smell those little burning embers there where something is burning here and it's not going to go away.
Oh, yeah, she is a fundraising juggernaut, clearly on the progressive side, and she's going into places like West Virginia where Obama didn't win any counties, and she's raising money for candidates, and it's something to see. I think Hillary's going to have a real challenge on her hands if she decides, because she's the only candidate really you hear as a possible alternative to the Clinton machine.
And we here in MidPoint are one of those shows, and I'm certainly one of those journalists that always wants to check my facts over and over again. Interesting here also on the website, WAPO, which is short for Washington Post, fact checker gives Obama 3 Pinocchios on GOP criticism. Pinocchios are not something you want in any form of life, especially politics.
No, the nose is growing very long on this one. Obama claimed that the GOP isn't putting up any alternative plans, suggestions, or bills to his ideas, which is just ridiculous on the face of it. But they in their to their credit, they took him on and gave him the Pinocchios.
It's always good to see that Geppetto certainly would be proud that his little boy is being used for something so important in American societal existence these days. That's all on the Newsmax website. Mr. Colley, thank you very much for joining us, sir. We'll do it again tomorrow.
Hey, Ed, you have a good one.
You too,
Bye.
buddy. All right, and don't forget Newsmax.com, all the news right here. And now let's take just a moment to sit back, relax, think about America, and enjoy this American moment.
Christened on January 29, 1944, by the daughter of future President Harry S. Truman, the USS Missouri was our country's last great battleship and rapidly became the pride of the American Navy. On the 11th of April, 1945, she was attacked by a kamikaze pilot who crashed his aircraft into her starboard side, causing minor damage, which can still be seen to this day. The Missouri's commander, Captain William N. Callahan, ordered the pilot's body to be recovered so he could be buried at sea with full military honors. Serving with distinction throughout the Great War and beyond, it seemed only fitting when General of the Army Douglas MacArthur chose her as the site of the Empire of Japan's unconditional surrender. On the day of the signing, September 2nd, 1945, General MacArthur put little trust in his former adversary, so as a precaution, he ordered over 1,000 Allied combat aircraft to fill the skies over Tokyo Bay as a warning to the Japanese. Should they be planning anything but complete and unconditional surrender, retribution would be swift and complete. With her decks filled with sailors and soldiers alike, Supreme Allied Commander Douglas MacArthur began the ceremonies. He took his pen and handed it to General Jonathan Wainwright. Wainwright was touched. He had stayed on in the Philippines during the 1941 Japanese invasion, survived the Bataan Death March, and spent 4 years in a Japanese POW camp. A new long peace between Japan and America had begun. Big Mo, as she was affectionately known, permanently dropped anchor in Pearl Harbor on January 29, 1999, and opened as a museum, forever commemorating the site where America's involvement in World War II began and where it ended. For Newsmax TV, I'm Bill Curtis, and this is an American Moment.
Falls are the #1 cause of injury to senior citizens. Falling down stairs can be disastrous. Acorn Stairlifts has a solution. Just don't fall. Sit, relax, ride with an Acorn Stairlift, the world's leader in stairlifts. That's right, don't let limited mobility keep you from going up and down your stairs, even outside. Call Acorn Stairlifts now for a free information kit and no obligation quote. Now you can safely ride with your Acorn Stairlift.
Now I don't have to worry about him climbing those stairs again.
And our Acorn Stairlift was very affordable.
Our Acorn Stairlift is definitely more affordable than moving.
The Acorn Stairlift has a padded seat and backrest for maximum comfort. It easily folds up for access to the stairway. 5 safety sensors stop your Acorn Stairlift if there's something in the way. And it even runs during power outages.
And I'm the king of my own castle again.
You'll be working directly with the world's leader in stairlifts. That's right, there's no middleman. Acorn's trained technicians professionally install your stairlift directly to the staircase, in most cases in 2 hours or less, with no need for special construction. We don't leave until you're completely comfortable using your Acorn Stairlift.
Don't risk a serious fall down the stairs.
I was really surprised at how little they cost.
Call for your free no-obligation information kit and quote from Acorn Stair Lifts. Just don't fall. Safely ride up and down your steps.
Give your life a lift with an Acorn Stair Lift.
Call 1-800-514-1402 for your free information kit. That number again is 1-800-514-1402. Or visit our website today.
Call now.
Perhaps 2% of the church's clergy, or 1 in 50, are pedophiles. The Pope reportedly told an editor of an Italian newspaper that the abuse of children is like a leprosy. And while the Vatican is reportedly taking issue with some of the quotes the paper ran, the Pope said the church must deal with the problem with the, quote, severity it demands.
There is not a single question with regard to one statement. The Catholic Church has faced and often ignored for decades the issue with priests and other members of the clergy who are pedophiles. Fair to mention, it is not exclusive to the Catholic Church, as other faiths are facing their own need for self-examination. But a recent article that quoted Pope Francis admitting a specific number of pedophiles in the church has raised the hackles of the Vatican, now fighting back at the accuracy of the statement and defending their most recent actions to clean up the priesthood. Let's welcome to MidPoint a professor of business ethics at San Diego State University and a current prosecutor. She's completed over 150 trials ranging from hate crimes to child molestation and many others. Wendy Patrick joins us from Los Angeles. Wendy, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Wendy, it certainly shows that the Catholic Church may not quite have this Pope, and I fear to say this, but under their reigns, perhaps. The Pope sometimes speaks a little bit too open, I think, for some people at the Catholic Church. But they do have a point here with regard to this interview, because the interview says that the Pope used a 2% figure. The Vatican is now coming right back and saying, wait a minute, this editor doesn't record his conversations with the Pope, nor transcribe them word for word, and he is doing all this from memory alone. Now, as someone who looks at the ethics of all this, how do you first react to the Pope making this statement, the editor getting involved, the newspaper, and the Vatican coming back and issuing this refusal?
This is the kind of thing we see happening every day. You know, statistics are tricky. There are lots of different places that collect these kinds of statistics. But I got to tell you, statistics in this arena are particularly dangerous for a variety of reasons. The first and most important reason is that they only reflect the number of people who get caught. We have no idea how many people, how many pedophiles are actually in, whether we're talking about the clergy or any other profession, because it's really hard to detect a crime that is so severely underreported. Now, you're right. The Vatican's fighting back and explaining, well, the Pope relied on advisors that are giving him these statistics. He's not a statistician. He's got other things that are, that he's involved with other than, making sure that these quotes are accurate, which is why he relies on some others. And there are lots of people who report statistics like this, but I got to tell you, a lot of people believe that the actual figure is much higher.
Let's talk about that specifically, because as I mentioned here in my lead-in, this is not endemic only to the Catholic Church. There are Jewish organizations that are getting involved. There are other religious faiths that are also starting a tremendous amount of self-examination because they too have the problem. It is fair to say, and certainly with your experience, that when you have children involved, it is difficult to come out with a specific number and really nail this down because sometimes you just don't know, right?
That's absolutely right. And one of the things that Pope Francis has been very strong on is, he's very aware of what victims need. We want to protect the children. So he's apologized, he's asked for forgiveness, but what victims want is justice. They want perpetrators brought to justice. They want reparation of their own. They want to be made whole. And one of the things that Pope Francis said along those lines is that basically, pardon the cliche, all roads are going to lead to Rome on this one. He's going to be made aware of what's going on in the different areas of the world. You know, and it's a culture of transparency that he's been trying to really put into practice since he took office March of last year. He's doing a good job of that, and a lot of the victims' families here are saying this is definitely a step in the right direction to protect our kids.
Now, you talked about forgiveness. I want you and our viewers here to listen to Pope Francis. This was his statement at the Vatican on the 7th of July. Said, "Before God and his people, I express my sorrow for the sins and grave crimes of clerical sexual abuse committed against you, and I humbly ask forgiveness. I beg your forgiveness, too, for the sins of omission on the part of church leaders who did not respond adequately to reports of abuse made by family members as well as by abuse victims themselves." This is not enough for a number of the victims here. They want action. Wendy, that is the next thing I believe we have to talk about here. The Catholic Church is a very wealthy organization. There are people who will continue to look for some sort of reparations involved here. Are we really still at the point of seeing the tip of that iceberg for people who are going to go after the Catholic Church and still make them pay?
Yes, and I think we've seen that occurring over the last decade. There's no reason to believe it's going to stop. Here's why. One of the things that has happened with this scandal that has rocked the Catholic Church over the last decade is it shouldn't be the case that, like Las Vegas, what happens in church stays in church. Yet that has been what's been going on. They're not just sins of omission, they're sins of commission. So you've got the crime, and then you've got the cover-up. And there's only so much we can do to encourage victims to come forward. But one thing that always seems to work is when other victims come forward. So you're absolutely right. We can expect to continue to see children who have been abused coming forward, sometimes years later. And one of the important things I have to point out along those lines is this. The Pope can act by disciplining priests that are offenders, as you know he just did recently with the defrocked archbishop. Laws are harder to prove, though, criminally. Civilly is another matter, but there are statutes of limitations and things in different parts of the world that we've got to tackle in order to make sure we can try to get the justice for these victims who have come forward so many years later. So it's a tricky analysis, and I think that Pope Francis is, really making some strong steps to begin with. But I know you're right. Some of the victims' rights groups are saying we want to make sure that those strong statements are really followed by strong actions, because actions speak louder than words.
With about 45 seconds we have left, though, is it not fair to say, though, that the Pope of the Catholic Church coming out and saying this, that this hopefully will force other leaders of other church and other faiths to also follow his lead and to make sure that this is being cleaned up in their own communities?
Yes, we do follow his lead. In fact, talking about followers, Pope Francis has 4.2 billion Twitter followers, if you can believe that. There's a Pope app you can download so you can follow what he's doing all over the world, wherever you are. And you bet the people are looking at what he's doing, they're following his lead, and I hope they'll continue to do so because he's making some great strides in the right direction.
He is the leader of the Catholic Church, and certainly he is someone that the world is listening to, and it is certainly good that he is saying something now that people will hopefully want to hear, and he will indeed make a difference, and hopefully will make a difference to a lot of other religions as well. Wendy, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll do it again.
Thank you.
All right. It is something that Catholics have to ask themselves, and of course, as I mentioned, other religions as well have to consider what is happening. Protect the children. There is nothing more important. Coming up next, time to start telling the truth about the current wave of illegal immigrants and reported diseases. That's on Telling It Like It Is, and it's next right here on MidPoint.
I met St. Jude because I had a cancer inside of me. They diagnosed me with a brain tumor. You have to be strong and don't give up. Attitude is everything. You have to fight.
Imagine your doctor tells you your child has cancer with only months to live. Where would you go? What would you do? Who would you turn to? Fortunately, St. Jude Children's Research Hospital is fighting every day to save children's lives. And with a gift of just $19 a month, you can join the fight.
This is my kid.
that they're giving back to me. I am so grateful.
At St. Jude, no family ever receives a bill. In fact, no family pays St. Jude for anything. That's why your gift of $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, is so important.
When I thought that I might lose my son, they gave me hope. You are not only saving a child's life, you're breathing life back into that family.
If I hadn't have come here, I wouldn't have my son.
St. Jude's life-saving research and treatment is shared freely with hospitals around the world.
St. Jude gives you hope and happiness. They're helping us live. Maybe in the future, kids won't have to go through this. We'll find a cure and it'll all be over.
Please, call and become a St. Jude Partner in Hope right now.
I won this 55-inch TV for less than $30 on DealDash.com.
I got this $1,200 computer for $100.71.
These aren't actors, they're real people who got real savings at DealDash.com, the fair and honest bidding site.
On DealDash, I got this $349 mixer for less than $25.
iPads sell for as little as $5, laptops for $10, and professional cameras for as little as $20.
I won this iPhone for $8.48 at DealDash.com.
I got all this for less than $50 on DealDash.com.
Try DealDash today. If you don't win, get your money back, but hurry, everything must go. Go to DealDash.com now to start bidding.
In my first 4 months on DealDash, I won 104 auctions.
And shipping is always free.
Visit DealDash.com and start bidding today.
Take a look under your bed. Find stuff under there? What about jobs? No? Now try your closet. Still no jobs, just more stuff? Well, you really have both. See, stuff is defined as household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed? That can't be right. Because remember those jobs you were looking for? Those are really needed. And they're the stuff inside your stuff. Our job is to unlock those jobs. And it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs. And isn't that worth parting with the leftover keytar from your 80s cover band? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs.
Our Border Patrol comes and checks with us almost on a daily basis here, and they told us about an outbreak of scabies here at the McAllen station.
And that's not all.
We're starting to see chicken pox, we're starting to see staph infections, we're starting to see different viruses.
Garcia believes the viruses are not confined to the detention center. Not long ago, a group of border crossers came knocking on his door.
It was a 7-month-old baby. The baby was shaking and cold. It had a high fever.
We're told the Department of Homeland Security called in the Coast Guard medics. This trailer is just one of many used to treat the sick.
The current border crisis is just that, a national crisis. It has overrun law enforcement, local communities, state resources, the patience of citizens, school systems, a federal government that doesn't seem to have a clue, nor at times care to, what the common man and woman is experiencing, an overtaxed and underpaid border patrol, hospitals with not nearly enough doctors and nurses to care for those already there, and in need of medical help for things such as broken arms, broken legs, heart attacks, diseases. Let's begin right there. We are awash not only in immigrants crossing the border illegally, but we are being inundated by reports claiming, as a number of local and network broadcast stations are reporting, everything from scabies to Ebola crossing with these individuals into America. One problem: many of these reports are loaded with inaccuracies, rumors, innuendo, second and third-hand stories, and rarely, if ever, based on any solid, concrete, provable evidence. And it's evidence that needs to be used in discussing this issue, instead of seeking to create more of a hyperbolic panic. Georgia Republican Phil Gingrey is an intelligent man, a graduate of Georgia Tech University, a former obstetrician, and one of only 3 OBGYNs in the House of Representatives. The people of his district trust him enough to have allowed him to serve them since 2003. As with every politician, and I do mean every, he has been part of his share of controversies, questions, and implications. Hey, it comes with the territory. We know this. Like everyone else, he's allowed to make a mistake. But someone in his position of authority, no matter what your affiliation is, must do a better job of checking their facts and not allowing themselves to be caught up in the usual run of rampant rumors that seem to dog everything political. The congressman recently wrote a letter to the Centers for Disease Control containing the following claim. Reports of illegal immigrants carrying deadly diseases such as swine flu, dengue fever, Ebola virus, and tuberculosis are particularly concerning. Many of the children who are coming across the border also lack basic vaccinations, such as those to prevent chickenpox or measles. The congressman cites reports indicating several border agents have contracted disease through contact with the unaccompanied minors. In the CDC letter, he did not indicate the source of those reports. There have been no confirmed reports of Ebola, which is a disease where the majority of cases come from Africa. Most of the kids coming into America at the moment are from El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras. And a pediatrician treating many of the immigrants coming into McAllen, Texas, was quoted by NBC News, noting these children are bringing their medical records with them, and they're, for the most part, up to date. UNICEF, the Children's Rights and Emergency Relief Organization, reports that 93% of kids in Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador are vaccinated against diseases such as measles. American kids are ranked at 92%. Guatemala has universal health care, and that means vaccines are funded by the government and easy to get. Most of the kids crossing the border are described as being somewhat middle class and therefore unlikely to be rampant disease carriers, much less harboring Ebola. Yes, there are health issues. There are people with the signs of tuberculosis, common cold, and other potentially dangerous ailments. Yes, there is and there must be concern. But the wild and screaming headlines and reports pointing to a new era of the Black Plague are often misleading, and simply put, they're wrong. The point is, while our elected officials should demand better security for America and question what a seemingly uncaring administration is doing about it, they must also do a better job of checking their facts before making wild claims. Make sure that what you are talking about is fact. Make sure that your reports are absolutely accurate 100% of the time. And this is also something that we need to ask of other members of the media as well. There is a crisis here, but let us deal with it from a factual standpoint. That is telling it like it is. Hour 2 of the fastest 3 hours of news. Eric Holder continues doing more harm than good by noting any disagreement with he and the president must be all about the color of skin. And our man in a suitcase takes Frontline from the Soviet Union's perspective. It's next.
Meet Mary. She loves to shop online with her debit card. And so does Bill, an identity thief who stole Mary's identity, took over her bank accounts, and stole her hard-earned money. Unfortunately, millions of Americans just like you learn all it may take is a little misplaced information to wreak havoc on your life. This is identity theft, and no one helps stop it better than LifeLock. LifeLock offers the most comprehensive identity theft protection available. If Mary had LifeLock's bank account alerts, she may have been notified before it was too late. LifeLock's credit notification service is on the job 24/7. As soon as they detect a threat to your identity within their network, they will alert you, protecting you before the damage is done. LifeLock has the most comprehensive identity theft protection available, guarding your social security number, your money, your credit, even the equity in your home.
My years as a prosecutor taught me that we all need to protect ourselves from crime. In today's world, that includes identity theft. It's a serious problem. We all have to protect ourselves.
While identity theft can't be completely stopped, no one works harder to protect you than LifeLock. You even get a $1 million service guarantee. That's security no one can beat. You have so much to protect and nothing to lose when you call LifeLock right now and get 60 days of identity theft protection risk-free. That's right, 60 days risk-free. Use promo code NOTME. Order now and get this document shredder to keep sensitive documents out of the wrong hands. A $29 value, free. Don't wait until you become the next victim. Call 1-800-918-3128 for 60 days of LifeLock identity theft protection risk-free and get a document shredder free. Use promo code NOTME. Call 1-800-918-3128 now.
The Attorney General of the United States, the man charged with enforcing the laws of this country, has decided to once again place himself smack dab in the middle of the race conflict in America, while also taking a few casual shots at a former vice presidential candidate. An overreach? Or does he have a point? Vladimir Putin has finally been pushed by Ukrainian rebels. The waiting game reaches a new stage. This while Putin appears to be double-dealing everybody he can. Our man in a suitcase is in Kiev for the latest. And is the Republican Party making yet another misstep by failing to court the Jewish vote? And what are the latest from that part of the Middle East where the shooting continues in earnest? The second chapter of the fastest 3 hours of news begins as we question everything for Tuesday, July 15th, 2014. And we welcome a few new residents to Outland today, a special group of law enforcement officers who seem to have conveniently forgotten when they were wearing a uniform of a different kind. We'll get to it all right after John Bachman deals with this edition of Newsmax Now.
Thanks, Ed. We'll start with some new poll numbers. A majority of Americans disapprove of President Obama and congressional Republicans' handling of the border crisis. According to a Washington Post ABC News poll released today, 58% of Americans disapprove of the president's handling of the buildup of undocumented children along the U.S.-Mexico border, illegal immigrants, some say, compared to 33% who approve. 54% of Latinos say they disapprove of the president's stance on the issue. Congressional Republicans actually did worse. 66% of Americans disapprove of their handling of the border issue, and just 23% approve of congressional members. Now, the Obama administration and lawmakers are scrambling to deal with more than 50,000 illegal children coming from Central America and South America as well, entering the U.S. since October. Many Republicans and Americans have slammed the president for not visiting the border during his trip to Texas last week. We also now have an update on the Moscow subway train that derailed earlier today, killing at least 20, sending another 150 to the hospital. Rescuers at this hour are still searching for trapped passengers. It happened in the deepest metro station in Moscow, 275 feet below the ground. Some passengers escaped through tunnels. Officials are ruling out terrorism, which has struck the Russian transit system in the past. At first, it was thought a power surge was to blame, but now it may be the fault in the train cars or a sinking roadbed on the tracks. And some Republicans say his comment about legitimate rape back in 2012 cost the GOP a Senate seat and maybe even more. Todd Akin is now out with a new book called Firing Back, taking on the party bosses and media elite to protect our faith and freedom. Make sure you stay with Newsmax TV throughout this program and for the Steve Malzberg Show. Steve will have a one-on-one interview coming up with Akin. See why he's backtracking on that apology, what he's got planned next for his political career. Ed, over to you.
To a mechanism that gives long-term, sustained, quiet and security to the Israeli public. An end to those missile strikes launched by the terrorists in Gaza. That's what we want. Now, if that can be achieved diplomatically, that's good. If the diplomacy fails, if Hamas continues to shoot, continues to try to kill our people, we will act to protect them.
With the midterm elections looming and the presidential race about to bear down upon us in what will feel like days instead of months, the Republican Party continues to try and figure out what they must do in order to recapture the nation and make their party the one in power. In their effort to grab millennials, Hispanics, and African Americans, Republicans may be missing a key part of the American demographic, one that can indeed help turn an election. We'll talk about this and the latest from the Middle East as we welcome to MidPoint a former Iraq War veteran who is now a candidate for the House of Representatives in California. Elon Carr joins us today. Mr. Carr, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me. Good morning.
Good morning, and good afternoon to us, and good morning to you, of course.
Yes,
we do want
right.
to talk a little bit about what's happening with the Republicans and with the Jewish contingent that is in the Republican Party right now, but I cannot start any place else but knowing certainly that As you look at your website, there is a picture of you and your family actually in the Middle East. So I can only imagine that much of your thinking right now is in the Middle East, where the missiles are flying once again and there are people dying again in what is simply an unending conflict, it seems, between the Palestinians and the Israelis. Should there not be someone trying to get something done here to at least bring some sort of a stop to the missiles flying? Because it seems Hamas does not want to stop shooting.
Well, it's horrendous. I just received an alert on my phone a few moments ago indicating that yet another rocket slammed into yet another population center. And you know, you talked about the Jewish constituency. I don't think this is a Jewish issue. I think all Americans and all decent, peace-loving people throughout the world have to be thinking about Israel today and the women and children of Israel who are traumatized, air raid sirens and running into bomb shelters. And this is just incomprehensible to live this way in a country that's a beacon of peace and democracy and freedom in the Middle East. And it's outrageous. And the United States has to stand unequivocally and unwaveringly with Israel as Israel attempts to defend itself.
As we then have that point, the United States standing with Israel, in your mind then, if you were an elected official in authority, in a position to influence what happens here, what should the United States do? Because right now there are some people who are saying that John Kerry should stay home. The United States should stay out of it right now.
Well, I think the United States should express very strong support for Israel's right to self-defense. The right of a country to self-defense is enshrined, of course, in the United Nations Charter. It's a matter of international law. And Israel is exercising its right to defend its people and its families from what is really a violent, dangerous terrorist organization that now has the capacity to launch rockets into Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, thanks to Iran. I mean, this is has been for years an Iranian proxy, an Iranian-funded terrorist organization, and it's a grave danger. Hamas and its funders, its prior funders, Iran, represent a tremendous threat not only to Israel but to the United States and to democracy throughout the world. And so we need to act to protect ourselves by supporting Israel and allowing Israel to do what it needs to do, which is to defeat a dangerous terrorist organization.
Would you stand with those who, quite frankly, have taken the president to task here in the last couple of months? Certainly it's been even longer than that. Basically saying that he needs to stop pussyfooting with Hamas and basically call them what they are, a dangerous terrorist organization, and stop trying to, in essence, cuddle up to them and soften his tone towards them?
Well, I was deeply dismayed by the administration's statement made through the State Department that we are going to be working with the PA Hamas unity government. And right after the PA and the Hamas swore in this new unity government, the State Department called it, well, it's a technocratic government and we're going to continue to work with them. Well, a few days later, this so-called technocratic government, through one of its Hamas spokespersons, issued a statement calling on Hamas to attack and kidnap and kill Israelis. And then a few days after that, just a few days after that, 3 Israeli teenagers were kidnapped and murdered. Kids who were doing nothing, who were not a threat to anybody. They were murdered in cold blood. And this is right after the United States, in effect, endorsed a PA Hamas unity government. And I think that's the wrong message to send. Just like it was the wrong message to send not to support the moderate Syrian opposition, and just like it was the wrong message to send not to continue working with the Sunni tribes in Iraq. And the results of our absence from leadership in the Middle East is clear. The region is aflame, and our foreign policy interests have grievously suffered over the last few years. And frankly, you just shake your head at the retreat America has shown in a region that really stands to either, on one hand, grow and prosper, or on the other hand, turn into a disaster that threatens our families and their security. And so we really need to get our act together.
With specific interest then to what's happening right now in Israel, how insulting is it to you and to other members of the Jewish community, Jewish Americans, those who have roots back in Israel, that this president and this administration has not put that foot forward to get right, to put the hammer down on Hamas at this point and talk about just how brutal they are?
Well, I think what the United States needs to do is condemn Hamas and call it what it is, which is a dangerous terrorist organization with the blood of innocents on its hand, countless innocents on its hands, number one. Number two, We need to provide Israel with all of the support and material it needs to undertake and execute its self-defense operations decisively. It's of no interest to have Israel suffer casualties and conduct this operation like so many previous operations, and then end it with a pressured ceasefire that doesn't really change the facts on the ground. Israel needs to win this conflict. Hamas is a danger to Israel and to the United States, and we have to make sure that Israel has the freedom to defend itself. And defending itself in this case means seriously damaging Hamas's capability of continuing this war against the only democracy in the Middle East.
Would you then be in favor of Israel putting troops immediately? Of course, they already have troops on the ground in Gaza, but putting more ground troops involved and having America then get involved in helping the Israelis with whatever form of effort they might need, or any sort of goods or intelligence, whatever they might need at that point, to simply go in and finish the job?
Well, I think what Israel needs is American support and American moral support and financial support in terms of military assistance that we give to Israel every year. Israel doesn't need the United States to be involved on the ground. Israel doesn't need U.S. troops committed. Thank goodness Israel has a strong, good, professional, decent army that follows the rules of war and the law of armed conflict. And so Israel knows what to do and knows how to handle itself and defend itself. But we need to make sure Israel's right to self-defense is not in any way constrained, because Israel does have the right to defend itself. And so we have to make sure, both in terms of our own statements and our own conduct, and in terms of our votes in the UN Security Council, we have to make sure that Israel has the unfettered right to self-defense that we, the United States, enjoy, and that every country enjoys under international law. And that right is sacrosanct, and Israel needs to be able to defend itself. Now, in terms of whether I favor a ground operation, that's a matter for the IDF and the elected Israeli government to decide. I'm confident that if Israel decides that the only way to destroy Hamas's capacity to wage this war against Israel's cities, which is what this is, it's a war against citizens and cities. It's appalling. If Israel decides that a ground operation is necessary, I'm confident they will do that. They will do what's necessary, including ground forces. And we need to stand with Israel and say Israel has a right to do this.
Couple of minutes we have left here. You were the top vote getter in the June primary for the open seat. That's CA 33, currently held by Henry Waxman. There is, however, a story that caught our attention. I'm certain that it caught yours as well, because excluding the soon-to-be retired Eric Cantor, there are now 31 Jewish members of Congress, 30 of them Democrats, and an independent senator from Vermont, Bernard Sanders, who generally votes with Democrats. There is the prospect of having no Republican Jews in the House and the Senate, and some people are saying that is because of some of the uber right-wing portion of the Republican Party, that they need to back down a little bit and be a little more welcoming to the Jewish community in the Republican Party. How do you see it?
Yeah, I don't think that's the case. I think that it was an accident of demographics and of various shifts in various districts and electorates. But I think that needs to change, because it's not healthy for the Republican Party, and it's not healthy for the Jewish constituency in America not to have any Jewish Republicans on Capitol Hill. We need both parties to be diverse, and we need every constituency represented on Capitol Hill. That's healthy for both parties. And so I think that it is very, very important that we elect other Jewish Republicans to be part of the fabric of the Republican Party on Capitol Hill. I'll say something else also about Eric Cantor, because Eric Cantor, although he was, of course, a partisan, I mean, he was the Republican leader of the House, it's very important to note that when it comes to Israel and the U.S.-Israel relationship, Eric Cantor was really a bipartisan leader. The work he did together with Steny Hoyer was remarkable, admirable, and tremendously impactful. And so in losing Eric Cantor, not only did we, America, I don't mean we, the Jewish community, we, America, lost the only Jewish Republican on Capitol Hill, but we lost an undisputed bipartisan leader on the U.S.-Israel relationship, and that is deeply dangerous for the U.S.-Israel relationship. And so we need to elect committed Republicans and Democrats who are going to make this issue a priority and do what's right by standing up in a bipartisan way with the state of Israel and ensuring that the U.S.-Israel relationship is stronger than ever. And I intend to be that kind of congressman.
Elon Carr, we are unfortunately out of time, but please, let's come back and do this again. I have a feeling that we have a lot more to talk about, and we need a lot more time to do it. Good luck in the race, and we thank you again for your time. All right. Let's also point out that there are those who say that it is a right-wing party, and they need to be more accommodating to their Jewish voters as well. That's a discussion that we'll carry for another day. All right, next up, our man on a suitcase checks in from Europe, where Vladimir Putin seems to be pulling one of the oldest con jobs in the books, double dealing on everybody. That and more as MidPoint continues.
When Bob got into the accident, I was terrified. His injuries were so severe, but once we knew he was going to be okay, what then?
I couldn't go back to work for a long time, and we got way behind on our bills.
We'd hired an attorney, but when our case kept dragging on, we didn't know how we were going to get by. Thankfully, our attorney knew about Oasis Legal Finance.
Oasis looked at our case and got us the money the very next day.
What a relief it was. We didn't have to wait until our case settled, and the money from Oasis helped us when we needed it most.
At first, I wasn't so sure. What if we lost the case? How would we be able to pay back Oasis? But then I found out if we did lose, we wouldn't have to pay them back, so there was no risk in doing it. No risk.
If you were involved in an accident and hired an attorney to fight for the compensation you deserve but need money now before your case settles, then call Oasis today. Oasis has given millions of dollars to people like you who need money fast while waiting for their case to settle. There's no risk, so call now.
I was hurt badly in a car accident just after my wife gave birth. We were counting on the cash from my lawsuit to get caught up, but the case took forever.
Honestly, we didn't know what we were going to do. Then we saw an Oasis TV commercial and called. We were approved and got money from Oasis the next day.
Not in a week, the very next day.
I was hurt at work and filed a workers' comp claim. I called Oasis and they gave me the cash I needed. Unfortunately, I ended up losing my case, but Oasis let us keep the money. They kept their promise, and we didn't need to pay them back.
There are no out-of-pocket costs and no payments until your case is settled. If you lose your case, you don't have to repay Oasis. There's no risk. Call Oasis now to see how much money you can get before your case settles.
Call now, 1-800-562-8184. 1-800-562-8184. 1-800-562-8184.
Now on Newsmax TV. Donald Trump is a Tea Party favorite, but will he really run for president? Now, Newsmax reveals the truth about Donald's plans for 2016. Go now to Newsmax TV.
Officials in Russia's Rostov region are on the scene of a fatal shelling reported to have been fired from Ukrainian territory. The shelling killed one man and injured two women in Donetsk, a town of the same name as the city in eastern Ukraine.
Russia's foreign ministry condemned the attack and blamed Ukrainian government forces. State-owned news agency The Voice of Russia quotes a Russian diplomat saying this is a qualitatively higher degree of danger to our citizens. Therefore, a démarche will be tough and precise.
Dangerous but always darkly entertaining is Europe's answer to Arnold Schwarzenegger, pumping and flexing those incredible muscles. That scamp Vladimir Putin is back in the news, wheeling and dealing under the dictator table. This and more from the other side of the pond. We welcome back columnist and author of Delta, currently available in the Kindle edition on Amazon. L. Todd Wood joins us once again. We now call him the man in a suitcase. Todd, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You're now out of the suitcase, and that is good news here as well. We heard that soundbite there that started things out. Here we have the Ukraine shelling the border. Russia says it was a deliberate attack. Ukraine denies responsibility. Todd, why do I get the feeling that this is almost like the Ukrainians poking the bear?
Well, you know, Russia is just waiting for an excuse to really cause some problems. They've moved about 12,000 troops back to the border. Putin is a master of escalating and de-escalating at the right time to try and get what he wants. I don't think Ukraine is trying to, really poke Russia. I think it's the other way around, actually. I think Russia is really looking to try and start something here.
What about the economic, let's put this all together, economic, political, military costs of any real abrupt action here by Putin at this point to try and keep the Ukraine. There are those who say that it's simply just been deemed far too high at this point for Putin, that he might have overreached a little bit and now he needs to just sit back and wait for things to settle down. Where do you stand on this? What are we hearing over in Europe?
Europe would like to just make this go away, but unfortunately, it's not going to. There is a real effort with Russian propaganda to try and destabilize NATO, and they're very good at this. And actually, NATO has recently suggested that they need to try and counter the Russian propaganda machine because it's been so effective in this whole conflict from the beginning. And it's really concerning them because it's influencing populations. And the Europeans want this to go away. It's not going to. Putin is going to continue until he gets what he wants, which is really Ukraine, not a force on his border, destabilized, and wary of going into the European orbit.
What are we to make now of the coziness between German Chancellor Angela Merkel and Vladimir Putin?
Well, that's one of the fascinating things about this that most people don't understand. Merkel grew up in East Germany, so she was part of the behind the Iron Curtain. She speaks fluent Russian, and Putin has been courting her from a diplomatic standpoint very strongly throughout this whole crisis. She has influenced by several of the foreign ministers, which she's very friendly with on the Russian side. And there is a definite connection between Putin and Merkel. They talk all the time. They talked recently with this plane being shot down. So, yes, Russia would love to pull Germany over to their side. I mean, think about it. If Germany joined the Eurasian Economic Union with China and Russia, and that would be one powerhouse to deal with. And I think that's going to be Obama's legacy, is really the destruction of NATO as we knew it.
All right, now, you bring up NATO here, and I wanted to talk about Merkel for a second, but let me get right to NATO. Is there a fear, is it real, when we see this, that people are say that Putin is afraid that the Ukraine will join NATO, NATO will move in there? Is that a reality in this situation here, or is that just sort of far-fetched?
It's not going to happen in Ukraine. I mean, if it would have happened in Ukraine, it would have happened a long time ago. We actually did not forward deploy troops in NATO on Russia's border along the Baltics and Poland and elsewhere because we didn't want to offend Russia. I mean, that didn't do us a lot of good. We've had to scramble and try to get troops back in that area. I mean, that has been the excuse that Russia has used, Putin especially, saying that, NATO is threatening them by moving all these troops to former Soviet territories, which is true. But the European, if you notice, the East Europeans are the ones screaming the loudest for sanctions against Russia because they understand living under the Russian boot, if you will. So, yes, I mean, that was an issue. I don't think it's an issue in Ukraine.
There are some people who will look at what's happening here, and they look at Putin basically trying to get the Ukraine and other satellites back under Russian control. And despite the fact that we make fun, I make fun, and others do of Putin sometimes, and sometimes the cartoonish things that he does in order to make sure that he keeps himself public relations viable, there are those who very seriously see what is happening now as a real threat to global security again. That Vladimir Putin, no doubt about it, is trying to put together the Russia that will be just as powerful as it once was, that will once again be able to stare down the Americans and the Europeans, and will once again be that second power rivaling number one in the planet. Now, looking at all that we have here, with Putin putting it together economically, things that he's doing right now, is this really possible? And if it is possible, what are we looking at here? A year, 2 years, a few years down the road, or even sooner?
Putin's very patient. I think we're a ways away from that happening, although events on the ground have been speeding up very, very fast recently. I've mentioned that it's not just the Soviet Union, it's 1,000 years of Russian empire that he wants to put back together. And he's very effective at seeing opportunity and moving when the opportunity is there, and then stepping back a little bit and biding his time. And I think that's exactly what he's doing. He's going to run for another term. That's almost a foregone conclusion. The Russian people support him, although there has been a dampening down of the aggressive war propaganda against Ukraine within Russia, and I think they may be trying to massage the Russian people that they're not going to get everything they want in Ukraine. But then you see Putin shooting down an airplane recently. So it's hard to predict this guy.
What, if anything, then, is a consensus opinion that Europe and the United States can do in order to get in this guy's way, in order to properly blunt whatever he may be thinking about and stop what could be the formation of that new global threat?
Well, you know, Russia is, I wouldn't say scared, but they are worried about the threat from NATO militarily. That is it defeated them in the Cold War. And we have to maintain NATO as a functioning alliance against, you know, Eastern aggression. And that's what Putin knows, and that's what he's trying to prevent happening by courting Germany, by, you know, causing trouble in some of the former Soviet republics. You know, Estonia has a 40% Russian-speaking population. He doesn't have to take over Estonia. He just has to stir up trouble, and they, you know, have a vote and say they want to join Russia. And then what happens? I mean, we have an Article 5 treaty obligation there. So NATO, first of all, has to be strong and united, and that takes leadership on the American side, and we don't have that, and that's quite scary. The other thing is that we have to make it very clear to him that aggression, you know, through Ukraine or in other areas will not be tolerated and will be dealt with. You know, we can deal with it economically. We can hurt Russia in a very short period of time if we want to. It just, you know, we have to make sure that's the right thing to do, and then do it if we need to.
A couple of minutes we have left here. Working off what you just said, is there a consensus or an idea here that if the United States does not get further behind NATO, does not push, does not really become that driving force with NATO, that the will for NATO in order to stop Russia is just not there, that it's just not enough unless America really gets behind him?
Oh, I think that's exactly right. I think Putin senses that, and he is working to undermine the relationship, especially with Germany, with the United States. I mean, there's a poll recently in Germany that 60% approximately of the German population want to be neutral, you know, and treat Russia and the United States the same way. That is a shocking number, that they have come that far due to the, you know, incompetence recently of this administration.
With regard then to Germany, it's interesting because we've had the whole case here where the American CIA agent has been expelled. Hey, Todd, come on, you travel through Europe extensively here. Everybody, and I mean everybody, spies on everybody else. Everybody has had it. Governments have been doing this now for decades. It's nothing new right here. In reality here, what is being said in Europe, and what is your sense that, is this really going to be something that will seriously affect the relationship, or honestly, is this just saber rattling at this time between Germany and America?
Yes, everybody spies, but again, it's leadership, and it is, you know, competence, and not making your allies look, you know, stupid. I mean, the whole Snowden thing, and having us say that, you know, come out that we were spying on Merkel's phone for several years. I mean, that was devastating, much more than any of the evidence that came out with Snowden, I think, because it destroyed the relationship with this a very strong and needed ally. So that is a problem. And yes, if we don't deal with it, I guess if we don't get leadership in the White House who can lead the free world will fall apart. I think we're seeing that right now. 15 seconds left here. Safe to say that people in Europe right now don't respect the American leadership at all. No, we're not even at the table anymore. And that is shocking and frightening. All right, let's go ahead and show people again. The book we want to go ahead and point out is available through Amazon. It is Delta. It is now in the Kindle edition, written by L. Todd Wood, who is now officially our man in a suitcase. Todd, it's always a pleasure to catch up with you. We'll do it again real soon. Thank you very much, Ed. Talk to you later. All right, coming up next, a trip to Outland, where a certain town in Florida is caught employing law enforcement that didn't mind wearing two sets of uniforms. One for enforcing the law, another for selecting whom they would enforce those laws for. It's all coming up right here on MidPoint, where we question everything.
Falls are the #1 cause of injury to senior citizens. Falling down stairs can be disastrous. Acorn Stairlifts has a solution. Just don't fall. Sit, relax, ride with an Acorn Stairlift, the world's leader in stairlifts. That's right. Don't let limited mobility keep you from going up and down your stairs, even outside. Call Acorn Stairlifts now for a free information kit and no obligation quote. Now you can safely ride with your Acorn Stairlift.
Now I don't have to worry about him climbing those stairs again.
And our Acorn Stairlift was very affordable.
Our Acorn Stairlift is definitely more affordable than moving.
The Acorn Stairlift has a padded seat and backrest for maximum comfort. It easily folds up for access to the stairway. 5 safety sensors stop your Acorn stair lift if there's something in the way. And it even runs during power outages.
And I'm the king of my own castle again.
You'll be working directly with the world's leader in stair lifts. That's right, there's no middleman. Acorn's trained technicians professionally install your stair lift directly to the staircase, in most cases in 2 hours or less, with no need for special construction. We don't leave until you're completely comfortable using your Acorn stair lift.
Don't risk a serious fall down the stairs.
I was really surprised at how little they cost.
Call for your free no-obligation information kit and quote from Acorn Stair Lifts. Just don't fall. Safely ride up and down your steps.
Give your life a lift with an Acorn stair lift.
Call 1-800-514-1402 for your free information kit. That number again is 1-800-514-1402. Or visit our website today.
Call now.
Are you feeling tired, run down, low on energy? Well, you could be just like millions of Americans whose thyroid gland isn't functioning the way it's supposed to. Well, now there's hope to change all of that. Introducing Actilin. Actilin is a premium nutritional supplement designed to support optimal thyroid function. Actilin has 17 powerful ingredients that support adrenal health, thyroid function, energy, and your immune system. Actilin was formulated by the renowned holistic practitioner, Dr. David Brownstein. And now, for a limited time, you can get a free bottle of Actilin with our special offer. You pay only for shipping and handling. Act right now and get Dr. Brownstein's free special report, A Doctor's Guide to a Healthy Thyroid. Get Actilin and the special report. Sign up today at getactilin.com. That's getactilin.com. Or call us at the number below.
I'm Miranda Kahn, and here's your latest Newsmax Now update. President Barack Obama is in Virginia today to pitch funding of the Highway Trust Fund.
It will create better jobs and better position America for the future. Businesses will set up shop wherever they find the best roads and bridges and the fastest rail and internet, the smartest airports, the smartest power grids. First-class infrastructure attracts first-class jobs.
And Obama continued his plea for more infrastructure by saying the U.S. lags behind other major economies of the world. And speaking of our economy, Federal Reserve Chairwoman Janet Yellen says economic recovery here at home is not over yet.
Even with the recent declines, the unemployment rate remains above the Federal Open Market Committee participants' estimates.
And Yellen seconds Obama's call for more government investments to improve our labor market conditions.
We judge that a high degree of monetary policy accommodation remains appropriate.
Well, Brazil is hosting more than just the World Cup these days. Right now, world leaders are gathering there for the 6th annual BRICS Summit. The trade ministers from Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa are there to discuss global economic issues. The focus of this year's summit, the creation of their own banking system to serve as an alternative to a U.S.-dominated global economy. The 5 nations expect to sign off on that deal today. And I'm Miranda Kahn. That was your latest Newsmax Now update. More coming your way in about 30 minutes.
All right, the old adage goes, clothes make the man. This apparently is something conveniently missed in one Florida town. And also from the Sunshine State comes the tale of what not to do when apparently disagreeing with a superior. Welcome all to Outland, where the interesting people reside. We call them interesting only because my sated granny told me to never call anyone stupid, at least not in public. Let us begin in Miami, where you have basically a traffic stop. An officer sees another car speeding and decides that you stop him, and here comes the ticket.
The traffic stop looked ordinary enough. A Miami police officer pulling over a driver for speeding.
The only reason why I stopped him because he approached a pedestrian. He was flying. So I pulled him over.
Moments later, all hell breaks loose. The man threw open the door and lunged at the officer, who then threw the man to the ground and tried to cuff him. 3 cops who happened to be in the area pulled up and piled onto the screaming driver. It was then one of them realized the man at the bottom of the pile was a lieutenant with the Internal Affairs Unit, Lieutenant David Ramris.
I'm like, yo, I don't know who you are, bro. You don't jump out on me. I said, I don't care if you're a lieutenant or whoever you are.
The voice you hear belongs to Marcel Jackson, the officer who initiated the stop. Unbeknownst to the other officers, Officer Jackson was recording the entire incident, including a phone call he made to another officer, possibly a supervisor.
I had to like sling him to the ground. Bro, I thought I was going to get into a shooting, dog. I swear to God, dog. I thought I was going to shoot this man.
Hey, guess who's not getting a promotion next year? Also staying with the police side of things, in the little town called Fruitland Park, Florida, officers who seem to forget sometimes that what you do in your off time can indeed get you a ticket to Outland.
These two police officers were sworn to protect and serve all the people of Fruitland Park, but tonight they're off the job. An international FBI probe uncovered allegations linking the men to a local chapter of the Ku Klux Klan. A confidential source named Deputy Chief David Borst and Corporal George Honeywell as Klansmen. Borst resigned Friday. Honeywell was fired amid the allegations brought to their chief. Fruitland Park's top cop told us his officers denied any involvement and saw no direct evidence linking them to the KKK. Still, the chief called the notion despicable and disgusting.
We have police officers, paramedics, judges, they're everywhere.
Earlier this year, Eyewitness News heard from a leader of a local Klan chapter. He said their membership is 1,000 members strong here and growing.
A quick reminder that sometimes when you are in a position to enforce the law of the land, that what you do in your off time will indeed come back to haunt you from time to time. It should be pointed out, too, that the police chief in all this, or I should say the city manager, said that, quote, the city is diverse and tolerant. I don't believe they're that diverse and tolerant. Now let's take a moment, as a matter of fact, a medical moment, if you will, and get this update from Dr. Chauncey Crandall.
Judging from everything you hear, you think all cholesterol is bad, but that's not really true. You need a certain amount of cholesterol to maintain good health. The problem is that too much cholesterol in your blood contributes to a plaque, a fatty substance that narrows the coronary arteries that feed blood flow to your heart. Picture your coronary arteries as a 4-lane highway. If one lane becomes blocked, traffic still flows well. 2 lanes, no major problem. But if a 3rd lane becomes blocked, that spells trouble. It's the same way with your coronary arteries. And when plaque slows their blood flow to your heart, this can even cause a heart attack. The good news is that when it comes to cholesterol, lifestyle changes can pay off big time. Even a small reduction in plaque can be like opening up another highway lane. Suddenly, blood flow that was stalled can go forward again. Changing your lifestyle does not have to be hard. And in fact, here are 3 ways to help you start lowering your cholesterol. Snack on nuts. Nuts are probably one of the easiest and tastiest ways to lower cholesterol. Walnuts and almonds are among the best. Bulk up your diet with fiber. Choose whole fruits instead of a fruit juice, brown rice instead of white, and if you're eating a baked potato, be sure to leave the skin on. Choose fish. Fish contains cholesterol-fighting omega-3 fatty acids. I'm Dr. Chauncey Crandall, and thanks for watching this Heart Health Minute. Remember, it's never too late to prevent or reverse heart disease. Right now, I invite you to discover your own risk for heart disease or even a heart attack by taking my quick, free online quiz at www.simplehearttest.com.
Meet Mary. She loves to shop online with her debit card. And so does Bill, an identity thief who stole Mary's identity, took over her bank accounts, and stole her hard-earned money. Unfortunately, millions of Americans just like you learn all it may take is a little misplaced information to wreak havoc on your life. This is identity theft, and no one helps stop it better than LifeLock. LifeLock offers the most comprehensive identity theft protection available. If Mary had LifeLock's bank account alerts, she may have been notified before it was too late. LifeLock's credit notification service is on the job 24/7. As soon as they detect a threat to your identity within their network, they will alert you, protecting you before the damage is done. LifeLock has the most comprehensive identity theft protection available, guarding your social security number, your money, your credit, even the equity in your home.
My years as a prosecutor taught me that we all need to protect ourselves from crime. In today's world, that includes identity theft. It's a serious problem. We all have to protect ourselves.
While identity theft can't be completely stopped, no one works harder to protect you than LifeLock. You even get a $1 million service guarantee. That's security no one can beat. You have so much to protect and nothing to lose when you call LifeLock right now and get 60 days of identity theft protection risk-free. That's right, 60 days risk-free. Use promo code NOTME. Order now and get this document shredder to keep sensitive documents out of the wrong hands. A $29 value, free. Don't wait until you become the next victim. Call 1-800-918-3128 for 60 days of LifeLock identity theft protection risk-free and get a document shredder free. Use promo code NOTME. Call 1-800-918-3128 now.
Why 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? We choose to go to the moon.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
I think we're in a fundamentally better place than we were 50 years ago. We've made lots of progress. I sit here as the first African-American Attorney General serving the first African-American President of the United States, and that has to show that we have.
Attorney General Eric Holder is no stranger to controversy and at times seems to enjoy the spotlight, but he may have seriously overstepped himself this time in claiming that racial animus fuels the opposition to President Obama's efforts and his own. And he also seems entitled to make comments about former vice presidential candidate Sarah Palin. All right, let the discourse begin in earnest. Welcome to Midpoint as we go around the dial. Radio talk host of his own self-titled show heard in Miami, Florida on 880 AM WZAB and in Phoenix on KFNX 1100, also via his website, edwardwoodson.com. That would mean indeed that it would be Edward Woodson joining us. See how those works?
Well, thanks, Ed.
Thanks for coming in. Yeah,
Thanks
it's
for
two
having
Eds.
me.
Nothing can go wrong here.
Yeah,
It's real easy.
Absolutely.
Let's go ahead and start things out, and we want everybody to hear again. We just heard from Eric Holder, but here is one of the sound bites that really started this entire controversy here. Listen to this.
Enough is enough of the years of abuse from this president. His unsecured border crisis, for me, is the last straw. It makes kind of the battered wife say, no mas, that's enough. It's time to impeach.
She wasn't a particularly good vice presidential candidate. She's an even worse judge of who ought to be impeached and why.
You would have to admit that there are those people who hear the Attorney General talking about code, honor, whatever you want, talk about it, and hear him speaking about it, and they're not exactly catching the whole reference here about being reputable.
Well, I think it's interesting that he would, once again, he's like the boy that cried wolf, you know, to play the race card again. Aren't we just tired of that? I mean, it doesn't work. It hasn't worked for a while. And if you recall Mr. Obama saying in the interview in New Yorker of how people don't like the idea of having a black president, the idea. And why is that?
Well, but let's focus on that then, because we just heard the soundbite where he talked about Sarah Palin. There was one I wanted to play before that. Let's get to it now, and that is the one which speaks to this whole racial issue as well from Eric Holder. Let's hear that one. Do we have it?
I think we're in a fundamentally better place than we were 50 years ago. We've made lots of progress. I sit here as the first African-American Attorney General serving the first African-American President of the United States, and that has to show that we have made a great deal of progress. But there's still more we have to travel along this road so we get to the place that is consistent with our founding ideals. And I'm very optimistic that this country will get there. You know, it happens in fits and starts, and there are going to be incidents that we're going to have to deal with, but we should learn from those incidents, learn how we talk to one another, learn how we come up with policies that will make America the nation that it is capable of being. But I think this will happen.
When he speaks about that, and he speaks about a racial animus, was the phrase in there. Is this something that an attorney general should be speaking to?
Well, I think it's divisive. I mean, and the fact that they're bringing this up again, I mean, why would they bring this up except to divide America? I mean, this is the most divisive administration I can recall. If you look at, for instance, the black Americans in Chicago that have called President Obama the worst president in history, are they racist? The mother in Houston who has questioned the almost $4 billion that the president is asking for illegal immigrants on the border. Is she racist? I mean, anyone who questions the president, they're racist now? It's not the IRS, it's not the NSA or the VA or any number of scandals that are swirling around this White House. No, Ed, it's racism.
But this is, again, the Attorney General of the United States cop himself. Is this something that the Attorney General should be putting himself in the middle of?
Well, I don't think so. But look, just last week, the Department of Justice announced that no, they're not going to investigate the IRS, but they're going to investigate July 4th parade in Nebraska that disparaged the president. A parade float. I mean, really, a parade float?
Is this just something then, in your opinion, that some people share this as well, that this is just another plan by the Obama administration and the people involved to keep this country as divided as they possibly can heading towards the next election?
I think so. I think that you would have to conclude that that is the case. I mean, because you've got the first black president, you have a black attorney general, you've had Condoleezza Rice, you've had any number of successful blacks in this country. I mean, clearly there is racism, and there always will be, but to say that there's racial animus in terms of opposition to the president, and that's the reason why, is, I think, a bit ludicrous. And I think it's intellectually lazy to just put that out there.
Well, get onto that a little bit more. Why is it intellectually lazy?
Well, because to say that it's because of racism, I think belittles racism, really.
When we get down to this whole issue of racism, you mentioned Condoleezza Rice in here. There are those who criticized Condoleezza Rice vehemently, as a matter of fact. I didn't hear anybody bringing up the race card there.
No, nobody did. And do you remember Alberto Gonzalez, the Attorney General? He was criticized. I mean, look, when you're the President of the United States, you get criticized. That's part of the job.
Is this just an example, or is this just a plan knowing full well that he's 2 years and out at this point, just to create as much divisiveness as humanly possible here, to basically take the American public and the media away from the attention of the real issues?
Absolutely. He's the most divisive president we've ever had. Think about it. I mean, that's the plan. That is to throw the race card down, I think is, again, like I said, I think it's intellectually lazy. I mean, when you have nothing else, you're just going to throw the race card down. I think, again, he's the boy that cried wolf. I mean, isn't it time we stop with the race card and throwing that down? I mean, isn't it time that Eric Holder stopped doing that? Because he does take away from other issues. I mean, think about it. You can yell racism. It's pouring fire. I mean, it's pouring gasoline on the fire.
Let's give you a couple of seconds here. Do you think that Eric Holder did this in conjunction with the administration, said, I think I'll drop this in here just to see what happens?
Absolutely.
Really? You do think that there was some sort of a discussion?
Sure, of course. I mean, it's diverting away from what's happening in the border as well. I mean, if you can say this, I mean, why not?
All right. Edward Woodson, thank you so much for coming on up and joining us.
I appreciate it.
We'll talk a whole lot more. Coming up next, Bo Bergdahl is back in the news and back in active military service. How it's being covered by the national and local media is the subject of today's news call. We'll have that and a whole lot more when MidPoint continues, where every day we question everything.
Look how beautiful it is.
Honey, we need to talk.
We do. I took the trash out.
I know, and thank you so much for that. I think we should get a Medicare supplement insurance plan.
Right now?
Whether you're new to Medicare or not, you may know it only covers about 80% of your Part B medical expenses. It's up to you to pay the difference. So think about an AARP Medicare Supplement Insurance Plan, insured by United Healthcare Insurance Company. Like all standardized Medicare Supplement Insurance plans, they help cover some of what Medicare doesn't pay.
I did a little research. With a Medicare supplement plan, you'll be able to stay with your doctor.
Oh, you know, I love that guy.
These types of plans let you visit any doctor or hospital that accepts Medicare patients, and there are no networks.
Is this a one-size-fits-all kind of thing?
No, there are lots of plan options. It all depends on what we need and how much we want to spend.
Call now to request your free decision guide. It could help you find an AARP Medicare supplement plan that's right for you.
What happens when we travel?
The plans go with us, anywhere in the country.
I like that.
You know what else? United Healthcare Insurance Company has years and years of experience. What do you say?
I'm in.
Join the millions already enrolled in the only Medicare supplement insurance plans endorsed by AARP. Remember, all Medicare supplement plans help cover some of what Medicare doesn't pay and could really save you in out-of-pocket medical costs. You'll be able to choose your own doctor or hospital as long as they accept Medicare patients. And with these plans, there could be low or no copays.
You do your push-ups today?
Prepare to be amazed.
Don't wait. Call today to request your free decision guide and find the AARP Medicare supplement plan to go the distance with you. Go long.
Excuse me. What do you think you'd pay for this smartphone?
A few hundred.
That's top of the line. More like $425. More like $9.
What? That's not possible.
It is on DealDash.com. See, DealDash.com is the fair and honest bidding site. This top-of-the-line laptop went for around $40.
That can't be. Incredible.
I know. Everyone says it's too good to be true.
But it's true. DealDash.com gets people real savings every day, big savings. And if you're not satisfied, you get your money back. On DealDash.com, professional cameras sell for as low as $15. $50 gift cards go for $20. Laptops can be had for less than $10. And shipping is always free. It's perfect for gifts or just everyday necessities. Visit DealDash.com today and start bidding.
Is this from Deal Dash?
Uh-huh.
How much?
You don't want to know.
DealDash.com. See how much you can save.
Hi, I'm Ben Affleck. The only thing better than playing a hero in the movies is being a hero in real life. Like the 50,000 veterans who returned from Iraq and Afghanistan with devastating injuries. They are true heroes, and they're why I'm proud to support Paralyzed Veterans of America. For more than 60 years, Paralyzed Veterans of America has made a promise to never leave a fallen comrade behind. They make sure veterans with spinal cord injuries get the quality medical care, rehabilitation, and housing they need when they come home. They stay with our fallen heroes for the long term, offering counseling, job training, and support to help them regain the freedom and independence they fought so hard for, all at no cost to them. Our veterans fought for us. Let's fight for them. To learn more about how you can help, visit pva.org. That's pva.org. We will never leave a fallen comrade behind.
There remain many more questions than answers about Sergeant Bo Bergdahl, the soldier freed in a swap for Taliban leaders and who has now been released from an outpatient facility in Texas, returning to what is called active duty, but still somewhat restrictive. He remains a man under the microscope, and that his every move is now notable. The subject of this edition of News Call.
Sergeant Bo Bergdahl, who was released in late May by the Taliban, has now returned to regular duty with the Army. Now, the sergeant was held captive for nearly 5 years after he went missing in Afghanistan in 2009. After his release, he was sent to an Army hospital in San Antonio where he received counseling. The Army says Bergdahl has been assigned to the same location at Fort Sam Houston in San Antonio, but his duties have not been disclosed. The Army's investigation into his disappearance and capture in Afghanistan is ongoing.
We have an update tonight on the condition of Army Sergeant Bo Bergdahl, who was rescued after 5 years held captive by the Taliban. The Army says Bergdahl has completed his 6-week so-called reintegration process and is now back to regular active duty at Joint Base San Antonio, Fort Sam Houston, where he's been recovering. The specifics of his day-to-day duties have not been disclosed. One military official quoted today as saying it's a low-impact desk job.
Today, a new chapter for Sergeant Bo Bergdahl. Just a little over 6 weeks since the dramatic prisoner swap in the Afghan desert that ended his 5 years of captivity in the hands of the Taliban. This morning, the Army announced Bergdahl has been returned to regular duty and given a desk job at Fort Sam Houston in San Antonio, after completing what military psychologists said would be his reintegration process.
In captivity, fundamentally, your decision to make any choice is taken away. So we slowly increase our chances to make choices and have a sense of control.
My name is Bo Bergdahl.
Bergdahl's return to regular duty also means that the Army can begin the most sensitive part of its investigation, questioning him about how he became a Taliban prisoner in the first place.
The Defense Department says Bergdahl has completed therapy and counseling following his return from captivity in Afghanistan. Bergdahl was released in May after 5 years as a Taliban prisoner of war. The Army is still investigating the circumstances surrounding his disappearance. Fellow soldiers claim he abandoned his post. Bergdahl was rescued in exchange for 5 Taliban detainees held at Guantanamo Bay. His release sparking controversy over whether the prisoner swap should have happened.
He's also expected to meet with Major General Kenneth Dahl. Dahl is the officer investigating Bo Bergdahl's disappearance back in 2009. Defense officials say Sergeant Bergdahl will live at the barracks now and have 2 other soldiers with him to help him readjust to life there.
One of the most interesting things, perhaps, though, now that he's completed this therapy phase of his treatment, it will allow the Army to have its investigating officer sit down, talk to him, and in a more formal sense, ask him questions about his disappearance back in 2009 from his base in Afghanistan. How did he disappear? What happened? Did he walk away deliberately? For the first time in over 5 years, to get Bo Bergdahl's side of the story.
Idaho native Sergeant Bo Bergdahl is back on active duty. It's the latest step in a process towards adapting back into life that could last years. 44 days after being released from the Taliban, Army Sergeant Bo Bergdahl returns to active duty at Joint Base San Antonio, Fort Sam Houston in Texas. According to a spokesman for the 5th Army stationed at the base, Bergdahl is working in administration and does, quote, soldierly duties, which includes maintaining equipment. He is treated like a normal soldier on base and is unrestricted. Military prosecutor says this is typical procedure.
Let's follow this up with some more information. Bergdahl will be assigned to a unit responsible for homeland defense, civil support operations, and security cooperation programs involving countries such as Canada, Mexico, and the Bahamas. According to Army officials, no further details, but they say he will be treated no different than any other soldier. He is not in an office, or when he's not in an office, he will live in the barracks and share a bathroom with other service members. There are still plenty of questions that have to be answered with regard to Bo Bergdahl, where he came from, and where he goes from here. Hour 3 on MidPoint, just around the commercial corner. The latest on bombs falling anew in Israel. Another reason to distrust the banking system, and cops killing dogs for what owners will tell you is no logical reason. It's coming up on MidPoint, where we question everything.
Those struggling with their weight know that it goes beyond willpower.
I wish I wasn't still hungry.
Is this enough?
It's late, and I'm still hungry.
Weight loss is not just about willpower. While we have different triggers, we face similar challenges.
Am I full?
Do I want more?
Have I had enough?
Maybe it's time to try Belviq. Belviq is FDA approved for weight loss in adults who are overweight with at least one weight-related medical condition or obese. When used with diet and exercise, Belviq can help you lose weight and keep it off. Belviq works by activating receptors in your brain that are believed to cause you to feel full. For some people, this means that they can eat less.
I've had enough.
Being overweight can carry health risks, like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, or type 2 diabetes. If you are overweight with any of these conditions or obese, Belviq may help you lose weight and keep it off. Do not take Belviq if you're pregnant, planning to be, or nursing. Before taking Belviq, tell your doctor if you take medicines for depression, migraines, mental problems, or a cold, as these medicines with Belviq may cause serious or life-threatening side effects. Call your doctor if you have confusion, sweating, fever, or stiff muscles. Some people taking medicines like Belviq have had heart valve problems. Call your doctor if you have trouble breathing, swelling, dizziness, fatigue, or a regular heartbeat. Don't drive or operate heavy machinery until you know how Belviq affects you. High doses may cause mental problems. Talk to your doctor if you become depressed or have thoughts of suicide. In patients with type 2 diabetes, weight loss may cause low blood sugar. Stop taking Belviq and tell your doctor if you have prolonged erections or your breasts begin to make milk or increase in size. Belviq may decrease blood cell count. Common side effects include headache, dizziness, fatigue, nausea, dry mouth, constipation, back pain, and cough. Belviq may help you lose weight and keep it off. Talk to your doctor about Belviq. To get your 15-day free trial offer, call 800-798-5943 or visit startbelviqnow.com today.
Hamas ups the ante in the latest shooting war between the terrorist organization and Israel. Egypt now in the mix. And there is no let-up in the missiles flying over the Gaza Strip. What, if anything, can be done to stop a situation for which there seems no way out for either side? Americans all too often talk about not being able to trust their bank, and there are several million more reasons to believe it. And it's no longer isolated. Cops around the country are killing dogs and pets when they believe their life is in danger, and the facts show the knee-jerk is becoming commonplace. Join us as we question everything for Tuesday, July 15th, 2014. Also on the dance card, we'll check in with our sister shows and the interview comments we believe that you need to hear. All beginning after John Bachman deals this edition of Newsmax Now.
And thanks for that, Ed. About 30 illegal immigrants who were in the United States are now back in their homeland of Honduras. The group, which included children and their families, were among the first to be put on a flight and deported since the president promised to speed up the repatriation process a while back. The charter plane landed in the city of San Pedro Sula, and some reports indicate that city has the highest murder rate in the world. Meanwhile, we're all border states now. That's because illegal immigrants are being relocated all throughout this country. This Google map was created by the Center for Immigration Studies, and it shows areas where illegal border crossers are being sent once they leave the border. Take a look here. Most of the relocations are along the southwest border still. Many are being relocated on the East Coast as well. Take a look at Florida's Miami-Dade County, now reporting that more than 300 illegal children are being housed there. It's also happening in Virginia, New York, in Massachusetts. And in Houston, some illegal immigrants are finding hope in a strip mall.
Country with big opportunities, and this is the dream. This is the dream for everybody.
Still in search of the American dream, despite promises from the president again to increase and speed up deportations, people like that young man we just heard from remain optimistic that they will get to stay in this country. Remember, the Supreme Court has held that any minor in the U.S. has a right to attend school regardless of immigration status. Now to the VA healthcare scandal. It's going to cost an extra $1.4 billion to provide additional benefits for U.S. military veterans. A new Inspector General's report just released says that increase will definitely happen in the next 5 years unless there are significant management improvements across the country. Also last night at the House Veterans Affairs Committee meeting, they talked about ways to improve delivery of benefits for our troops and vets. We also learned that during that hearing, the VA inaccurately processed, the VA inaccurately processed about 1/3 of all benefit claims filed by vets. They also just simply failed to make any kind of decision on claims for more than 6,000 vets. Those claims were either shredded or were sitting on a desk without action, left unanswered by VA administrators. And some Republicans say his comment about legitimate rape back in 2012 cost the GOP a Senate seat, maybe more. But could his newly released book cause even more damage?
If we were going to set back the cause of truth and good ideas and what's right, then I just wouldn't have done it, okay? But that's what motivates me.
There you get the motivation coming from former Congressman Todd Akin, former Senate candidate. You can catch the full one-on-one interview with Akin coming up a little later on the Steve Malzberg Show here on Newsmax TV. He talks about the book, Firing Back, and what's next politically for him and the Republican Party. Again, that's coming up ahead on the Steve Malzberg Show. We'll be back with another 30 minutes with another Newsmax Now update. Right now, here's Ed in MidPoint.
Raised the idea of intercepting rockets. Everybody object to the idea because it looks science fiction, but we establish a team, we get some money, and have started to work. Took us about 2 years to get all the money needed to full-scale development and buying fewer batteries. This is how they start. The ignition, the incentive was because people started to get killed in Israel. They shoot rocket in Israel, not in this mass, but forecasting the future. I thought that we have to find a solution to protect Israeli life.
Were it not for something called Iron Dome, there would be buckets of blood spilling into the streets of Israel. This while the terrorist group Hamas denies a chance at a ceasefire in the Middle East, amid reports they are using their own people as human shields and tossing blame back at Israel. The shooting has escalated again, and the truth is indeed hard to come by at the moment. Let's learn a little bit more. Let's welcome back to MidPoint, Senior Fellow at the London Center for Policy Research, New York Times best-selling author and Bronze Star Medal Award winner, Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer joins us. Lieutenant Colonel, thanks for being back with us.
Ed, thanks for having me. Good to be on.
Egypt is now involved. They are the ones who decided to try and broker some sort of a peace here. Did the Egyptian proposal have any chance of success whatsoever?
I think it did. I think if Hamas was actually concerned about its people, the Palestinian people, it would have taken the deal. With that said, it's very clear, Ed, from their rejection that the Palestinian individuals who are running Hamas have no interest in their people. This is about them trying to prove a point. The Egyptian deal, from what I can tell, was very well thought. The Israelis are ready to sign up to it. And I believe, and I'll be very blunt on this, that the Hamas wants more blood, and they want to try to convince the United Nations to come in. They are actually hiding weapons, these missiles, in the basements of common everyday folks, hoping that the Israelis will strike those houses, and you'll have then, quote unquote, civilian dead bodies. So it's all a sham on their part, and frankly, that's what they want. That's why they don't want the ceasefire.
We're hearing a lot of reports as well that Israel is calling certain homes and certain places, certain residences. They are warning them when they are going to launch missiles against them. And then the reports indicate that Hamas is telling the individuals, Palestinians, their own people, to stand on the roof and stay in that building. Do you hear the same thing?
Absolutely. That's the example of exactly what we're talking about here. We're talking about techniques which were actually perfected by Saddam Hussein during the first and second Gulf Wars with him. This is murder by your own, at the hand of your own leadership. The Israelis have the right of self-defense. I think everyone agrees on it, even John Kerry. With that said, when the Israelis go about trying to do the hard work of actually going after these missiles, that's when the real challenge starts. And this is where Hamas, again, is doing everything it can to prompt this worldwide, especially UN reaction to say, woe is me, we're the victims here. And the reality is they are, and again, doing everything they can to pick at the Israelis, try to continue to see their civilians dead for no other reason except to prove a political point.
Tony, you mentioned this is murder. This doesn't sound like murder. This sounds like genocide. This has happened before, where Hamas has been in these fights with Israel in the past. I believe it's 08, 09, and then 2012, we had certain wars, again, small wars, if you will. What are they trying to prove other than martyrdom at this point that they did not prove in the past and trying to push now?
I think they're trying to leverage the UN, believe it or not. And here's my thought on this, and see if your audience will agree with me or not. If you recall Bosnia-Herzegovina and the days where Yugoslavia was actually trying to draw in the United Nations, once they drew in the United Nations, the UN then became essentially pawns that allowed for the Yugoslav government to do more acts of badness. With the UN present, you have basically a resource that you can use to leverage. If you were during the 90s, your audience may recall that they actually had French peacekeepers chained to targets that we were getting ready to take out. So I think that's what Hamas wants to have happen. And the reason they're doing it is because that gives them more ability to build terrorist capacity. It's very clear that the Iron Dome system is very effective. So what they're trying to do is build more capacity to try to overwhelm the dome. And so you see this escalation, if you will, of tactics trying to get one up over the other. So I think that's where Hamas is actually going with this. This is part of a long-term strategy.
You mentioned Iron Dome. Now, is it fair to say, and certainly we have seen them, I believe they've intercepted all but one missile, maybe two. I don't have the exact figures in front of me right now. Is it fair to say that the Israelis have perfected this now? And this is something, if you go back to the Reagan and Gorbachev days, this is something that maybe America and other countries should have taken a long, harder look at, because it certainly is working.
This is an interview I did with another station just earlier today, Ed. I mentioned the very thing you just said, is that this was what Ronald Reagan envisioned for Star Wars or SDI. And it's interesting that the Israelis have perfected it. I'm hearing it's about 90% effective. And let's remember, Ed, they don't go after the incoming missiles, which are not basically destined to hit anything of interest. They'll let missiles go if it's going to hit some field. This is not 100% effective, but it doesn't need to be. It needs to be about 90%, as that's what they've got. We're learning a lot from it. This is good news. This is the only good news piece, is the Israeli people are being protected, and we are learning a great deal about what we need to do now regarding missile defense, regarding Iranian missiles, potentially, North Korean missiles, and this sort of thing. So I think this is the only good news. But the issue, obviously, is that Hamas really does want to continue to overwhelm that system with more missiles. And again, that's why I see them trying to push for more capacity to launch these sorts of attack in the long run.
Is America militarily and politically ready for an Iron Dome system?
Yes. Yes and no. It's a political narrative, Ed, that's lacking. I work with Ambassador Hank Cooper, who runs who ran SDI under George Bush 41. And Hank is a dear friend and been working this issue for years. Yes, this is something that we've tried to get the Navy to take on. The Aegis destroyers can actually do a great deal of this. There's other land-based systems we can use. It's ready for prime time, but it's the political will issue, Ed, that's lacking. And this is something that's both sides, both the House and Senate and the White House have not been willing to actually move forward rapidly with. But this is something very much within the realm of potential at this point in time.
There are those in Israel, those in the Middle East, who have told Secretary of State John Kerry, stay home. Don't bother coming over here. We don't need you. Do you see any real involvement other than behind the scenes at the moment for American support of Israel?
The bottom line is it goes beyond Kerry. It goes to the White House directly. We, the United States, have essentially abandoned our role as essentially the arbiter. I don't mean the policeman of the world. I mean, we have been there for our allies to basically try to protect them as best we can. This is especially true of nuclear deterrence, which is now also at jeopardy of being of being completely ignored by our adversaries. For better or for worse, our nuclear umbrella, the process of deterrence, has kept the world safe from nuclear weapons for the past 50 plus years. As we start seeing ourselves pull out of attempting to resolve the hard things like Syria, like Libya, some of the situations we help create, we then become diminished in our ability to support our allies. And John Kerry is emblematic of that. He does not want to see us actually do the hard work of resolving things. He simply seems to want to place blame on others, and even made the comment to the media that he feels that he gets upset or concerned when people talk about American exceptionalism. And the American exceptionalism is really just us leading by example. That's it. And the moment we don't lead by example, others out there who are adversaries will fill that space very rapidly. And I think it's a sad statement to see us falling back as we are, not taking the leadership roles we need to in these situations.
It sounds to me, if we wanted somebody brokering peace in the Middle East, John Kerry's the wrong guy to do it.
I can think of a handful who would be extraordinarily well gifted, but at this point, based on the way he said things about the Israeli apartheid, he has said other things which have really concerned our allies about his willingness to support them. The Egyptians, which have been a great ally, they attempted here with Hamas to insinuate themselves and bring a peaceful coexistence into existence for the ceasefire. John Kerry is not the right man for the job. And simply put, if it continues in this direction, we will see more failures, even graver failures, over the next 2 years of this administration.
90 seconds we have left here. How long can this go on? Because Hamas, they are getting missiles, they are being fed weapons, but how long can this go on? We keep giving Patriot missiles to the Israelis, so you would think that they would be able to outlast Hamas.
Well, the answer is probably, but it's a very expensive way of doing it. And plus, it's like a cancer. You can continue to cut the growth off, but if you don't get at the root of the cancer, Ed, it'll continue to grow back. So this is where I'm going to say this as directly as I think I can get away with. The Israelis may have to consider going in ground-wise to secure certain territory. And I'm not encouraging an Israeli invasion. They've been doing some things with special operations forces. But the bottom line is this. As long as that group, Hamas, continues to exist, continues to be able to insinuate itself and use these rockets as a method of terror, you will continue to see this problem. And it's, as you point out, it's happened over cycles. It happens and goes away for a couple of years, it comes back. There needs to be a permanent solution to this issue. And if I were an Israeli citizen, I would encourage my government to resolve this one way or another and be done with it. It's great they have the Iron Dome. It's great we're learning from it. But I'm telling you, Ed, I don't think I'd be sitting here in Fairfax County, Virginia, enjoying life if I had rockets flying over my house, even if I thought they weren't going to hit me every 10 minutes.
15 seconds left. Do you think we need to keep an eye on Syria as well in all this?
Syria, their destabilization of that, and the ISIS is another symptom of the larger problem of us not stepping in and trying to help resolve things favorably.
It again still comes down to the fact that we haven't done the right thing at the beginning in order to lead us here. It is still that A to Z arrow, that line, no matter how you want to slice it. It's the way it happens in every conflict. Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer, it is always a pleasure, my friend. Let's do it again real soon.
Thank you, Ed. Thanks for
All right, thank you very much. Again, the missiles are flying in Gaza. The latest reports that have come down is, you may have heard them, you may not, Egypt has proposed peace. Hamas said no. More missiles started to fly. Apparently there were 50 more missiles that Israel saw incoming from Hamas. So the Israelis have said, we will not be talking peace. We're talking a whole lot more when we continue right here on MidPoint.
I've got a small business, and everybody said you should be promoting it with Facebook.
Well, I use Facebook for myself, but I had no idea how to use it for my plumbing business.
Then I heard about web.com.
They told me they would build a professional Facebook page for my business free.
So I gave them a call.
And then they built me a Facebook page for free. I couldn't believe it.
If you call web.com now, you can have a new Facebook page built for your small business free. We even write posts for your Facebook page that will get people talking about you.
It's like I have this whole big social media department for my business.
Call now and web.com will build your new Facebook page free. Then we'll continue to bring you new fans, write posts for you, and report on results, all for one low monthly fee. If not, cancel and pay nothing.
Now people call me and say, I found you on Facebook. How cool is that?
You say it, we build it free.
Call 1-855-235-7998 today.
Hi, I'm Mike Reagan. If you're a senior or baby boomer, you may be missing out on some important information. Tens of millions of boomers are set to retire, yet many don't know that how you file your Social Security can dramatically change the amount of money you collect. That's why Newsmax created a special report offering you the best strategies to maximize your Social Security benefits. For example, this report reveals a weird trick that could help you add up to $152,000 to your Social Security payouts. It also shows how some qualifying recipients can add up to $1,000 to their monthly payments. To get your copy with our free offer, along with 7 additional money-making booklets, simply go online. Newsmax says this report is a critical resource for anyone over the age of 50. So go to our website today and find out if you qualify to add extra money to your Social Security. Remember, it's your money. You deserve the most back in your retirement.
Now on Newsmax TV. Donald Trump is a Tea Party favorite, but will he really run for president? Now Newsmax reveals the truth about Donald's plans for 2016. Go now to Newsmax TV.
Today, the Justice Department attained a landmark civil resolution with Citigroup, totaling $7 billion in fines and consumer relief to address the bank's involvement in a scheme to sell fraudulent securities that were backed by toxic loans. Despite the fact that Citigroup learned of serious and widespread defects among the increasingly risky loans that they were securitizing, the bank and its employees concealed these defects. The bank's activities shattered lives and livelihoods throughout the country and also around the world. They contributed mightily to the financial crisis that devastated our economy in 2008.
Now, there was a time in America where we actually trusted our banks. We dealt with real people. We knew our cash was being well tended. We even thought those banks were our buddies. Those halcyon days when we were all so naive. No longer, as we now have 7 billion more reasons to not trust the banks. So what does it all mean to the person who needs those very same banks? That, a public utility idea for companies such as Facebook and the most popular city in America at the moment. Welcome to MidPoint. You read his comments on Busy Blog and PJ Media. Thomas Bloomer checks in today. Tom, thanks so much for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me, Ed.
Tom, here we go. Citibank bagged $7 million. Check that, $17 million by the state of Delaware. Again, basically a settlement for not doing things right. I hate to say this, but here we go again. This makes people think we're back at the housing bubble, Citigroup, Citibanks, the same people who are here. Why should Americans have any trust in their banks whatsoever, knowing that it seems they're all dirty dealing somewhere under the table?
Well, I think the bigger question is, why should anybody trust the government, which is regulating the banks and basically causing the kind of behavior that you're describing? And let me explain. Citibank allegedly, or let's just say they perhaps have admitted to certain practices without like declaring guilt. You know how those legal settlements tend to go.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing exactly what Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac did by quantum leaps greater, okay? Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac took on all kinds of risky loans and deceived the securities markets to the tune of possibly $1 trillion or more dollars, far more than Citibank or any other private bank ever did. But yet you notice that Eric Holder's not going after Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac for doing the kinds of things that Citibank ended up doing. And I'm going to say Citibank ended up doing it because Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae basically dictated how the market should operate. And so these banks ended up figuring out, you know, if we don't start lending money to people who can't afford to pay it back, we're not going to have any loans at all. So let's join the party. I'm not saying Citibank should have done that, but I can understand from a human nature standpoint why they would have. And then going to the next step to deceive investors, well, okay, let's take it on faith that they did. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have been shown to have systematically done that to the investment community to the tune of, like I said, at least $1 trillion. So to get back to your fundamental question, if we can't trust banks, it's because we can't trust the government that is regulating them to within an inch of their lives and basically telling them everything to do based on lawsuits like the ones Eric Holder has filed and based on the Dodd-Frank law, which was passed roughly, I think, 3 years ago.
Should the headline here, though, not be federal government charges Citigroup, Citibank corporate executives with fraud and looks to put these people in jail instead of what we're seeing right now, and then ask the question why that still has not happened?
Well, okay, and I get that. I get that concern, but if you're going to start putting people in jail, you need to go to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac because the scale of what they did and how they did it is far, far, far greater than anything Citigroup or, and I'm trying to think, JP Morgan Chase, I think was another one, did. And again, Citibank and the other banks started doing what they were doing after it was obvious what Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac were doing. Do I get the idea that perhaps some people should be in jail because of this? Yes, but I want a complete cadre that includes executives from Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac.
You won't expect to see that, though, in your lifetime, though, will you?
No, I don't. No, I don't, and it's a shame because, like I said, what the two so-called government-sponsored enterprises did to ruin the housing market is far, far worse than anything Citigroup or any of the other big banks did. I didn't even get to the point of saying that to be able to take loans from banks, in other words, banks would make the mortgages and then sell them to Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. Now, they ended up keeping a lot on their books like Citibank and others, but I mean, in the earlier stages, Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae were buying these mortgages, but what they said is, you know, you really should lend to borrowers who have credit scores of roughly 620. If your borrowers have credit scores of 620 and above, we're going to consider that a conventional mortgage. Anybody who knows credit scores knows that 620 is not an impressive credit score at all. And they actually lowered the threshold for subprime mortgages down to about 580. And 580 is like barely having a pulse credit-wise. So Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac basically altered the landscape of the entire mortgage lending market. And all of this fallout is a result of what they did in that regard. And then, even after they got these loans, deceiving the securities markets about what kind of loans these were.
Let's talk about item 2 on the dance card here today. A thinking process that Google, Amazon, and Facebook should be made public utilities. And the reason behind this, in a number of articles, saying that big tech was created with public developed technology, so we should move to make them public utilities. Is this even possible, or is this just a wonderful pipe dream here to try and bring these companies into some sort of customer service?
Well, you'd like to think that it's a pipe dream, but you'd also like to think we wouldn't have two politicians as prominent as President Obama and Senator Elizabeth Warren basically saying, you didn't build that. What the author of the Salon article that you're referring to, who wants to nationalize Amazon, Google, and Facebook, by the way, is basically saying that they're taking advantage of the internet, which the government built. Therefore, it's perfectly within the government's realm to nationalize them if they don't, according to his definition, behave. Now, I'm not going to deny that each of the three companies have a fair degree of power right now. Google controls like 80% of search, but nobody's forcing Google to use, nobody's forcing people to use Google as their search engine. Amazon obviously dominates online sales of all kinds of things, but again, nobody's forcing you to use Amazon. And third, Facebook obviously dominates social media, but nobody's forcing you to use Facebook. Now, the argument is, well, shoot, I can't build my business unless I, advertise myself on Facebook, or I can't build my personal brand unless I build myself on Facebook. Well, A, you don't have to, and B, there's other ways to build your brand. Now, all of these companies have their problems. Amazon's been behaving rather aggressively and anti-competitively. Google has had its moments along those lines, and Facebook, is arguably invading people's privacy to an extent that is possibly illegal. But if those companies are doing illegal things, the Justice Department should stop doing silly things like going after somebody in Nebraska for an Obama making fun of latrine or whatever it was, and start looking at real violations of the law, if there are any, that these companies are committing. And if they're not, well, then we should leave them alone.
About a minute I have left here. How do you like Cleveland, Ohio?
Boy, Cleveland's profile has improved a lot in the past 5 or 6 days, hasn't it?
It sure has. All of a sudden, they have a big sports star back home now. The Republican National Convention is getting there. Hey, come on! It's the most popular city in America right now.
Well, there's only one problem with that theory. Look, I'm in Ohio. A lot of people down here in Cincinnati, which is where we're from, like to make fun of Cleveland, and it's an easy target. I personally want Cleveland to succeed. Cleveland has failed largely because of left-induced policies that go back a good 50 or 60 years when, frankly, everybody in Cleveland thought they were untouchable as one of the greatest cities in the nation. There was a point in time, I think, when Cleveland was the 5th or 6th largest city in the country with like 900,000 people. Right now, the city has something in the neighborhood of 400,000 people. Their population bleed is, I believe it's only second to Detroit's. So, it's very nice that Cleveland has these new developments, but they need them. And I'd like to think that there's maybe a bit of a change of a philosophy up there, but I'm worried that that's not the case because, frankly, Cleveland is still controlled by the left. And in terms of one of the two major developments, the
10 seconds.
In terms of the Republican National Convention, frankly, I'm worried that they're going to underestimate how much of leftist fever swamp activity goes on down there.
All right, we got to go. All out of time. Thomas Bloomer, thanks for joining us, and MidPoint continues.
Can you really lose weight without changing your lifestyle? LaToya Q did. In fact, in just 5 months, she lost nearly 2 pounds a week without changing the way she dieted or exercised.
I lost 36 pounds and I went down 4 dress sizes.
Like so many people, Latoya didn't want to change her lifestyle to lose weight. Instead, she decided to take America's #1 selling diet pill, Lipozene.
People kept asking me, you have to be exercising. You're really you just don't want to tell us what you're doing. I was like, no, I don't have time to go to a gym. I just took Lipozene and I started seeing results immediately.
Lipozene has now sold over 20 million bottles. That's because Lipozene really works. And to prove it, we conducted our very own double-blind clinical study where all we asked people to do was take Lipozene. And by just taking Lipozene, they lost weight. But here's where it gets really exciting. These people were not asked to change their diet or exercise. And 78% of the weight they lost was pure body fat. Not water, fat.
I'm almost back down to my high school weight, so I'm really loving that.
And for even faster results, you can try Lipozene with moderate diet and exercise.
Feels great to have a six-pack. I didn't think I would have it at my age.
I lost 7 inches off of my waist and I lost 2 dress sizes and I feel amazing.
Now you can join the millions of people who have lost weight with Lipozene by trying it risk-free for only $29.95. Lipozene is guaranteed to help you lose weight or your money back.
Lipozene, it works.
But wait. Call in the next 10 minutes and we'll double your order absolutely free. Plus, we'll even pay for your shipping. But that's still not all. To celebrate selling over 20 million bottles of Lipozene, the company will give you a free bottle of Metabo Up with your order. That's a $20 value free. But you must call right now because this exclusive free offer is not available in stores.
Call 1-800-509-9436. That's 1-800-509-9436.
Excuse me, what do you think you'd pay for this smartphone?
A few hundred.
That's top of the line, more like $425. More like $9.
What? That's not possible.
It is on DealDash.com. See, DealDash.com is the fair and honest bidding site. This top of the line laptop went for around $40. That can't be.
Incredible.
I know. Everyone says it's too good to be true.
But it's true. DealDash.com gets people real savings every day, big savings. And if you're not satisfied, you get your money back. On DealDash.com, professional cameras sell for as low as $15. $50 gift cards go for $20. Laptops can be had for less than $10. And shipping is always free. It's perfect for gifts or just everyday necessities. Visit DealDash.com today and start bidding.
Is this from Deal Dash?
Uh-huh.
How much?
You don't want to know.
DealDash.com. See how much you can save.
I'm Miranda Kahn here again with another Newsmax Now update. A prominent immigration activist and Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist found himself in handcuffs today. Authorities detained this man, Jose Antonio Vargas, at the McAllen, Texas airport. Vargas was on his way to Central America to report on children who were fleeing that region. Vargas admitted to being an undocumented immigrant to the New York Times Magazine back in 2011. And speaking of border security, a U.S. rail line faces charges for what Mexican prosecutors call mistreatment of illegal riders. Mexican officials claim they have evidence showing these passengers being raped and abused while on board the Kansas Southern and Mexican rail line. For years, Central Americans used the train to escape to the United States. And for more details on both of these stories, you can be sure to visit Newsmax.com. I'm Miranda Kahn, and that was your Newsmax Now update.
All right, let's bring up to date on what's happening on our sister shows. America's Forum, that comes right before us from 9 a.m. until noon Eastern Time every day, Monday through Friday, and the Steve Malzberg Show that follows us from 3 to 6 every day, Monday through Friday. A column that is getting a tremendous amount of attention. Chris Ruddy, the CEO of Newsmax Media, joined America's Forum this morning. His latest column on Newsmax.com, where he says President Obama's border security bill could be a good fix with a few adjustments.
It is unusual for me to endorse an Obama bill. And I'm not endorsing everything about the bill, but basically the premise is a really good one. John, in his setup to the segment, talked about the fact that we have this massive children's crisis. And both Senator Cornyn and Congressman Cuellar in Texas, they're trying to push for the allowance of the administration to massively deport these children back to the countries and the families from whence they came. That is the Obama bill. Obama is pushing for that in his bill. He does want to deport these folks. Now, I agree with you. The price tag, almost $4 billion, is excessive. And I say in my article, Congress needs to cut that down. $400 million being put for new border agents, new judges, and speeding up the deportations. So Obama wants to change that William Wilberforce human trafficking law so that children don't have an exemption. So that is really good. The Republicans should pat him on the back for that.
Make sure that you read Chris Ruddy's column entitled Embrace Obama's Border Security Bill, right there on Newsmax.com. As we said, it is getting a tremendous amount of attention. A lot of people around the country and around the world are reading it right now because, frankly, immigration is the issue right now that has America gripped, whether you like it or not. It doesn't make a difference where you live. We have talked to people from Tennessee, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Oregon, California, every place imaginable, and it is still capturing the attention of America right now as to what is happening and what needs to be done. On the Steve Malzberg show yesterday, Brian Zimmer, the president of the Coalition for a Secure Driver's License, said that despite certain political and business oppositions, the Secretary of Homeland Security could have that fence built.
There have been many business and political reasons not to build fences on our borders. So when Representative Duncan Hunter first proposed a fence, substantive fence for the California border, it was met with a great deal of opposition, ridicule, etc. So fortunately, an earlier bill passed in 2005, the Real ID Act, created the option for the Secretary of Homeland Security to override environmental and lawsuit type oppositions. Although it didn't prescribe a fence, it simply said if the Secretary needs to build a fence, where he needs to build it or she needs to build it, they have the legal authority.
Yeah. It is one of the stories that we are following every single day on the Newsmax TV network because it is indeed still gripping America. 9 a.m. until noon, America's Forum with J.D. Hayworth every Monday through Friday. And then again, we join you from MidPoint from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern Time right here. And then the Steve Malzberg Show comes up every day 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time right here on the Newsmax TV network. Take a break right now for a moment and let us sit back and revel in this American moment.
It was called the War to End All Wars, but instead it only served as a prelude of worse things to come. It was the world's first universal war, with the nations of the United States, United Kingdom, France, Greece, Italy, Russia, and 19 other countries declaring war on Austria-Hungary, Bulgaria, Germany, the Ottoman Empire, and the other European-based nations. As the wars before it, and those after it, this war would prove to be a long, bloody, and costly conflict. For the first time, chemical weapons were used in organized warfare. In 1915, the Germans unleashed 150 tons of chlorine gas at Ypres, Belgium. Then 2 years later, used mustard gas against the Russians at Riga. World War I also gave birth to a new form of battle called trench warfare. Opposing armies would build elaborate trenches opposite one another, protected by barbed wire. The trenches themselves became havens for disease and life-threatening infections due to poor drainage and sanitation. The area between the opposing armies became known as no man's land, because it was fully exposed to artillery and small arms fire from both armies. Attacks, even if successful, often sustained severe casualties for both sides. So when it finally came to an end, on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month in 1918, soldiers from both sides greeted the news with great skepticism. Neither side dared to let themselves believe their long nightmare had finally come to an end, leaving an estimated 8.5 million people dead and some 21 million wounded. The actual peace document, known as the Treaty of Versailles, was not signed until 6 months later, on the 28th of June, 1919. Although the face of the civilized world had forever changed, 21 short years later, history would again repeat itself. For Newsmax TV, I'm Bill Curtis, and this is an American moment.
Meet Mary. She loves to shop online with her debit card. And so does Bill, an identity thief who stole Mary's identity, took over her bank accounts, and stole her hard-earned money. Unfortunately, millions of Americans just like you learn all it may take is a little misplaced information to wreak havoc on your life. This is identity theft, and no one helps stop it better than LifeLock. LifeLock offers the most comprehensive identity theft protection available. If Mary had LifeLock's bank account alerts, she may have been notified before it was too late. LifeLock's credit notification service is on the job 24/7. As soon as they detect a threat to your identity within their network, they will alert you, protecting you before the damage is done. LifeLock has the most comprehensive identity theft protection available, guarding your social security number, your money, your credit, even the equity in your home.
My years as a prosecutor taught me that we all need to protect ourselves from crime. In today's world, that includes identity theft. It's a serious problem. We all have to protect ourselves.
While identity theft can't be completely stopped, no one works harder to protect you than LifeLock. You even get a $1 million service guarantee. That's security no one can beat. You have so much to protect and nothing to lose when you call LifeLock right now and get 60 days of identity theft protection risk-free. That's right, 60 days risk-free. Use promo code NOTME. Order now and get this document shredder to keep sensitive documents out of the wrong hands. A $29 value, free. Don't wait until you become the next victim. Call 1-800-918-3128 for 60 days of LifeLock identity theft protection risk-free and get a document shredder free. Use promo code NOTME. Call 1-800-918-3128 now.
Tonight we are a country awakened to danger and called to defend freedom.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
One day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
He was inside the backyard in a fenced-off area. What was the cause for an officer to shoot and kill my dog? I just arrived at my house. There's Utah Animal Control. And the officers involved in killing my dog. Now I want to know who shot my dog and what the probable cause was to trespass on private property and kill my animal. Which officer shot my dog, please? He left?
He's not here.
Okay, it's probably a good thing.
Upfront and candid, I don't consider myself a pet owner. I consider myself fortunate to have a pair of furry kids in my family. 2 one-year-olds that brighten our lives, look to us for food and shelter, and love us no matter what, just like children. I protect them as I would my own biological kids. So this is an issue that has a personal edge and one that disturbs on so many levels. The government keeps no statistics, but some animal abuse activists estimate a pet is killed by law enforcement every 98 minutes in America. This past June, in what you just saw, police in Utah shot a family dog while searching for a lost boy. The dog was shot and killed by police while the pet was in his fenced-in backyard. The child was later found sleeping in his home. Let's welcome to MidPoint, attorney and recognized authority on animal and dangerous dog law, Richard Rosenthal joins us today. Richard, thanks so much for being here.
Glad to be here, Ed.
Is the most disturbing thing is it took that instance to make national headlines, and if you search this on any of the search engines, you will find it's happening in Pennsylvania, in Baltimore, in places across the country. This is not an isolated incident, and it's happening with more frequency.
What's even scarier, Ed, is that the police departments, rather than showing apologies or outrage, lie, create stories, and do nothing to discipline the police officers that do this.
Why are they being allowed to get away with this? Is this simply because they're only seeing it as no big deal, it's just an animal and we're doing our job?
It's even worse than we're doing our job. It's we don't care. Yes, they see it just as an animal, just as a piece of property, One of the scariest things is that when they execute warrants, most police departments have no procedure in place and no plans to deal with the possibility of dogs being present other than to kill them.
Richard, let me bring up another side of this, because as a dog owner, I have seen way too many people of all ages, of all social strata, who have dogs, and they make them their own personal little guardians, if you will. They turn them nasty. They make them dogs that bite. They make them dogs that attack. It is almost many times an extension of their macho that they have to have these kind of dogs. Is it not fair to say that there are not only police officers, and I'm not going to defend them here, but those who, quite frankly, are confronted by these animals that are turned evil and nasty by human beings, that they simply are afraid at this time? They don't know what they're dealing with?
Yes, there are. It very much is an issue. However, when the police officer or the person enters into private property and then kills the dog because the dog is protecting his property, there's something wrong with it. If you look at the majority of dangerous dog laws throughout the country, almost all of them have an exception to the dog biting a trespasser or protecting his owner or his property. Our law does recognize that a dog has a right to be safe and to be secure in his property. When a police officer, or anyone for that matter, trespasses, to then suggest that they're justified in killing the dog because the dog was not all warm and cuddly and friendly really stretches the point.
I want to also bring into this a story from Baltimore. A police officer, a 7-year-old Chinese Shar-Pei, went missing from her home. The same day, officers responded to a call that a dog had bitten a woman. The dog was named Nayla. Police restrained her using a pole around her neck. While she was restrained, the officer, Jeffrey Bolger, cut the dog's throat with a knife while the dog was being held and while the dog was being subdued. The officer was suspended without pay, arrested, and charged. Why is this not happening more? Because, Richard, this seems like not only a violation of your personal space, but your civil rights.
It is most definitely a violation of your civil rights. It also is a violation of the animal abuse laws in virtually every state. The problem is that we expect the police to police themselves, and they don't.
What then can the animal owners do? The person sitting there watching us right now, their dogs are well behaved, they take care of them, and the one that we talked about in Utah was inside the owner's yard. What is it that the owners can do right now to protect them from really jackhammer cops who are out there with no other thought process than to shoot first, ask questions later?
As obscene as the thought sounds, they need to make sure their property is gated and locked. When I was much younger, there was a very different view of police. The police was someone you went to help you when there was a problem. You didn't fear the police. Nowadays, one needs to be afraid of the police, and it's a horrible, horrible way for this country to have become.
Will these law enforcement officials ever understand that to many people these are family? They're not just pets?
Only when more and more of the families that have been abused this way start suing and the courts start issuing large judgments against municipalities, when it is no longer economically feasible for the police department to bury their head and ignore the law, will the politicians start forcing them to enforce the law even against police officers.
Richard, we're all out of time, unfortunately, but I want to thank you for joining us. It is something that we will pay attention to from here on out. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
We want to point out, too, there are a number of online resources for people who have lost dogs at the hands of police officers. Dogs Killed by Police Officers lets people post information about their canine victims, about members of their families. This needs to stop. It's obscene and it's despicable. Coming up next, on to New York and the Steve Malzberg Show, right here on the Newsmax TV network.
I met St. Jude because I had a cancer inside of me. They diagnosed me with a brain tumor. You have to be strong and don't give up. Attitude is everything. You have to fight.
Imagine your doctor tells you your child has cancer with only months to live. Where would you go? What would you do? Who would you turn to? Fortunately, St. Jude Children's Research Hospital is fighting every day to save children's lives. And with a gift of just $19 a month, you can join the fight.
This is my kid that they're giving back to me. I am so grateful.
At St. Jude, no family ever receives a bill. In fact, no family pays St. Jude for anything. That's why your gift of $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, is so important.
When I thought that I might lose my son, they gave me hope. You are not only saving a child's life, you're breathing life back into that family.
If I hadn't have come here, I wouldn't have my son.
St. Jude's life-saving research and treatment is shared freely with hospitals around the world.
St. Jude gives you hope and happiness. They're helping us live. Maybe in the future, kids won't have to go through this. We'll find a cure and it'll all be over.
Please, call and become a St. Jude Partner in Hope right now.
3 a.m. and you're up again for the third time. It's not just affecting your sleep, it's interrupting your daily life. Frequent trips to the bathroom due to an aging prostate is a common concern, but you can now do something about it with Prostate Revive. Doctor-formulated Prostate Revive is an all-natural dietary supplement packed with 15 powerful ingredients, focused on improving prostate health by targeting the two main sources of prostate concerns, rogue testosterone and inflammation. And now, in this limited time offer, you can try Prostate Revive absolutely free. That's a free bottle, a 30-day supply of Prostate Revive, risk-free. Plus, if you call right now, you'll also receive our free report, A Doctor's Guide to a Healthy Prostate. Call now for details on getting your free bottle, plus our doctor's report. Call 1-800-659-REVIVE. That's 1-800-659-REVIVE. Don't be a victim of an aging prostate. Start getting the sleep you need and get your life back with Prostate Revive. Claim your risk-free bottle now at 1-800-659-REVIVE.
Life can hit you with the unexpected. Forcing you to make difficult decisions. Leaving you feeling helpless. You don't have to lose your home. It's time to take control. The National Foundation for Credit Counseling can help. The NFCC is a nonprofit organization that has been providing quality financial counseling and education for 60 years. Our national network of community-based member agencies have helped millions of consumers with foreclosure prevention. Seek advice from our certified housing counselors today. Call us or visit mortgagehelpnow.org. Real solutions for real people.
Welcome back, everybody. Almost done with MidPoint. Time to head to New York City. That's where Steve Malzberg stands by. Yes, indeed, he is the home run hitter. He is the guy who every time makes no difference. Home run derby when it comes to television and politics. Hits one out of the park every time. No sweat, no problem. There you go. How's that? Was that worth the $20?
It was a pretty boring home run derby yesterday, wasn't it?
I don't watch the home run derby anymore. To me, it's always been boring. Really, there's no reason to watch.
Yeah, well,
Big deal.
sometimes it's exciting, but it was. I think the finals was like 9-1. I think the guy from the American League hit 1 home run.
Yeah, it just...
He's not the first guy.
All it is, it's just an exhibition, and it's batting practice baseballs. Come on. But that's okay. As long as it's there, people enjoy it, that's fine. It's okay. By the way, did you ever catch a home run or a foul ball at a Major League game?
No.
Oh,
you?
Yes, 2. 2 of them. Got 2. Both of them at the old Shea Stadium. Got one on a home run from John Milner, and another one was a foul ball on a rainy day at Shea.
Wow, did you see the guy in the stands the other day? It was one of the games, I don't remember which game, nationally televised. He had he threw a ball back because the opposing team hit the home run. Sometimes they throw the ball back. But it was a
fake
ball that he had in his pocket. A fake ball. He kept the home run that he caught. He made believe he was throwing that ball back.
I love it. Come on, that's exactly what you do. I want those baseballs. You always see people go, wait a minute, I just caught a ball. No, it's in the opposing team. You have to throw it back. No, I'm keeping this, man.
Pretty wild. Anyway, we're going to kick off
the
show
some politics
with
here.
Exclusive interview with former Missouri Congressman Todd Akin, who has written a book. Of course, he made the infamous the legitimate rape, quote-unquote, comments in 2012 when he was running for the Senate. And all hell broke loose on the part of the media, and his own party trashed him. And he reacts to all that and looks back and looks ahead and sees where the Republican Party is today, so that'll be interesting. We also have Jill Tamarisi, whose son is now in his 106th day of captivity in Mexico, and she says that he was kidnapped and is a victim of kidnapping and extortion from the Mexican authorities. So we'll talk to her. Bo Dietl, former famed New York NYPD detective, will be here to talk about what's going on the border. And we had a woman on yesterday, doctor, who talked about tropical disease coming from these kids who are coming in, and how doctors here are not prepared to recognize the symptoms and treat the symptoms. And got a link to that interview on Drudge. It was so important. So it's a terrible situation down at the border. Very dangerous what's going on.
Interesting with Akin, too. He says that one of the things he wants to do is continue to shine light on the media's unfair treatment of Republicans. I think it may have changed a little bit and gotten a little better, but he still has a point there. It still is very, very, very narrowly focused right on the Republicans. It's so many of the alphabet networks.
It's not gotten better. It only gets worse every day. You look at what Joe Biden has said, the racist things that he has said that would be considered racist if it came from a Republican. I mean, all George Allen had to say was macaca, and he was done with politics. Bill Clinton was the keynote speaker at the convention for the Democrats in 2012. And the irony there is they called the whole Republican convention in Tampa the convention of rapists because of what one congressman said. The double standard is just, it can make your head spin.
Speaking of getting away from things, I'll give you 30 seconds here. How about Eric Holder's comments? You have to wonder again just who is stirring this pot and what their end game is here. But boy, he sure enjoys it.
Yeah, we talked to David Swerdlick of TheRoot.com later. We're going to have a debate about that. Look, he likes to cry racism. Are there some whites who don't like Obama because he's black? Absolutely. How about the 95% of blacks who voted for Obama? Did some of them do that because they don't like whites? Yeah. So what's the point? I mean, everybody knows there's racism on both sides.
There you go. All right. And don't forget the Road to the White House series today. Forbes political analyst Carrie Sheffield will join you at 4:30. Talk about Donald Trump as a potential candidate in 2016.
Yes,
all
sir.
On the Steve Malzberg Show. Thank you, sir. Go hit another home run. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Thank you, Ed.
All right, and don't forget once again that it is all right here on Newsmax. Begins at 9 o'clock in the morning with America's Forum, right here at noon from MidPoint, 3 o'clock Eastern Time with the Steve Malzberg Show, the best, and covers everything right here. All right, rock on, true believers. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll do it again on Wednesday. Don't forget to come right back here because it makes no difference what the subject matter is. On MidPoint, we question everything.